my name, thinking I won't be the same. Turn fiction into fact. See what you didn't know, bruises that'll never show, slipping on your every jab. So tighten up your fist, step into the ring with this. I hope your mama's got your back. First round, you thought you would've knocked me down. Fifth round, bleeding out the side of your mouth. Final round, pulling the sound of my name in the crowd. You hit a bus. Oh, 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 oh. You hit a bus. Oh, 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 oh. Just 'cause I took a break, you're making a huge mistake, thinking you can take the throne. Look at you trembling, step into the lion's den. Bet you wish you stayed at home. Begging for mercy underneath your breath when I ain't even sweating yet. My legend's written in the stone, yeah. Your crying age in defeat is now your only friend. Even your mama's gotta know. First round, you thought you would've knocked me down. Fifth round, bleeding out the side of your mouth. Final round, pulling the sound of my name in the crowd. You hit a bus. Oh, 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 oh. You hit a bus. Oh, 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 First round, fifth round, final round. Oh, yeah. First round, fifth round, final round. No, 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 no. First round, you thought you would've knocked me down. Fifth round, bleeding out the side of your mouth. Final round, only the sound of my name in the crowd. You hit a bus. Oh, 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 oh. You hit a bus. Oh, oh, oh,
In a world where a host can't even operate his own microphone, a suit costs $400, and nobody knows what time it is, despite the clock that's literally built into the show, one man has the courage to stand up and say, it's in time, not on time.
Photo of you in my mind, on the table under lights. There's no one here but you and I. This neon town is yours and mine. And I said, hey, Aggressor.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, so I was muted. The audio didn't come on. Great. So let me start again. So 400. No, sorry, what is it? A million years ago, the Earth cooled, and then the dinosaurs came. I was just curious if anyone knows what movie that's from. Sorry. All right. So now we're up. I don't know. The technical gods are against us today. They tend to be against us on just about every day. So I guess that goes without saying. So we've been trying out Skype for the after show. It's been working pretty good, actually. I think we got most of the kinks out of the system. Last one, I was the only one who was logged. And then let's see. Yeah, thank you, Eddie. I'm getting in all the notifications, no sound. Hopefully you got sound now. You should. It's telling me now that you got it on the back. There's always something. So and then we got the call-in number up, and let me just make sure. I'm gonna go look at that. Make sure nobody's actually. Let's see. Yep. Okay. So we got that. That's 406-446-8463, and it's not a pay number, but whatever. If your local phone charges may apply there. But if you want to call in, or you can hit us on Skype live at intimeshow.com. Come on in. The invitations, I sent a whole bunch of invitations out, and then they got canceled the second I connected to the. I pissed off a god somewhere. So all the invitations got canceled as soon as I connected to our call center where we get the calls from. So I don't know. So doesn't want us calling. I should have done the what is it? It would have been more appropriate to play the oh dear Lord, I can't believe I've forgotten his name. Magician Penn Gillette saying, my mic was off. I think that would have been far more appropriate. Yeah, no. No. So let's see. I did try to hit up to get an old friend and see if she was available. I was going to drop her a link, but again, the links all got all invalidated the second I connected to the call center. So rather than try to fix the problem, because I want to keep the call center up, just let people know individually that they're we're doing just a regular call-in. Let me make sure that we're all. No, where'd that go? Okay. So, yeah, just let a few people know. I know Pat wanted to come in today, so we'll see if he is free. I haven't heard from him. He may have a few Discord messages, so I'll check that in a second. Oh, yeah, let's see. There we go. All right, so let's see who's trying to hit me up on Discord. Probably 20 people notifying me that, oh, yeah, that's... And I've been working on this video project that has sucked up a lot of time. It's well worth it, but now I just got all the first. It's everything all at once. Everything all at once. So, Nick know that he's talking to himself. I'm usually talking to myself. And I insert solipsist joke here, but the reality is, I got a family. They're all women, 2 girls and a wife. Which means usually I'm talking to myself. They're polite about it. I mean, they pretend like they're listening, but they have no idea what I'm saying. And I've noticed the saddest part about all of that is, let me just see. Eddie just tried to get in, and I may have missed it because the way this is set up right now, just got to be Johnny on the spot. So Eddie may need. You know what I may do? Well, if I switch it, I'll lose the call-in. But I'm at this point. It's unless it lets me merge these guys, which it probably won't. Because why would it? Oh, there you go. And then it's going to try on my phone instead, which I really hate when it does that. No, it won't let me merge. So, Eddie, why don't you give that one more shot? I'm just going to. That's not going to. Yep, it's the tech god. So Either we can have a call-in line or we can have the people in on Skype. It's just not. It doesn't want me to merge these things. Don't know why. Okay. I'm gonna hang up. I'm gonna hang up on our call center because I think that is interfering, and that just cleared up some of the audio anyway. So there you go, Eddie. You can give it one more shot. We should be up now. And there he is. Hello, hello. Now I can't guarantee. Now, well, first of all, $50 says he can't hear me.
I can hear you.
Oh! What? And he admits it. So
Yeah, I'm waiting on Bar to start his show, so figured I'd come hang out for a second.
Thank you. Nice of you to stop by. Yeah. So let's see. What's his name? Joe is on vacation for 4 weeks. He's basically traveling cross country. He may drop in for a show if he happens to be on the road, but he's cross country, and Xandering had to pick up a whole bunch of, because he did the emergency run, so he's got a lot of business that he needs to catch up on. So no, it's just me on the After Dark, but I've been inviting people, and now that I've just reopened the original room, I could probably send out invites. But I appreciate you coming by. How you doing?
Pretty good. How are you doing? I was fine until I got ready to start his show and then bit the hell out of my lip. That's never a good thing. I don't know how I do that.
Well, I'm getting older. I'm fucking up everything nowadays. I just I am finding new ways to injure myself. I had a mini freezer, and I had to reach a power cord behind it. And I was just like, oh, let me hop up onto that. I get halfway on it, and then my arms just give out. Boom, I'm on the thing. I was just like, yeah, I ain't a kid anymore. Jesus. And then my eldest is laughing her ass off. I'm like, thanks, honey. You're old, Dad. I was like, yeah, thank you.
I'm glad you said that, Nick, because I thought it was just me. I really did. I was doing some stuff in my studio, had my impact drill on top of the ladder, moved the ladder, it fell, it didn't hit me, and I was like, what an idiot. 5 minutes later, I did it again, and it fell right on my foot with the drill tip in, and I'm wearing tennis shoes, and now it's all black and blue. So there's that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, go on.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, okay. Well, with the drill in, but you didn't. It looks like you didn't actually stab yourself with it. So I guess.
No, luckily, Under Armour makes pretty good fabric, so it didn't put a hole in my foot, but all of the weight focus. I mean, it hit. It's almost like God Himself just took the drill and slammed it, and I about doubled over like a little girl.
I was gonna say I might believe in God after that if it didn't do a thing on my foot. So do you know? I was gonna say this too. Not that it's a big deal. John Maddox, I guess. I never heard of him until I guess. What is it? Randolph did. And if you have to bail, you know what? You can just bail, say goodbye, cut me off, or do whatever, because I don't want you to be late for the show. In fact, who's the show with?
Okay.
Let's know who the show is with, so everyone.
Black Atheist Rants. He was in Tang Chat, or on Tang Show, and ranting, given the name. And I was in the chat very charitably responding to some of his rants, and he was intrigued by it, and it's like, bro, we got to have a talk. So we're both from Memphis, so we got something in common. So I think it's going to be pretty cool. He's a cool guy. I don't think it's going to be a rant. I think it's just going to be I think he's, hashing out some of the things that he's intrigued by.
Last night I went to sleep, woke up about 3 hours, I slept 3 hours, and then I was just I did something really stupid. Which is I decided to check my Twitter. Don't ever check Twitter if you're trying to go to bed. It's designed to get you agitated. Yeah. It's designed to piss you off. I'm not kidding. It's because they figured out that people are going to engage more if they're angry. So the rage tweet is the goal. So they've figured out the ideal, the sweet spot of number of characters where you can say the most with the least amount of nuance and the least clarity. So then you tweet away, people misunderstand, attack, and so it's a cesspool. It's designed to be that way, and that's how they sell the most advertising. So, like an idiot, I decided I'm going to go on there, and one of the people I follow had a link to Maddox, who was doing his thing. I had only seen part of his interview with Randolph, and I'm always curious about new people, so I had decided to go check it out. And he was railing against the climate conspiracy, and he had suggested that he had noticed that the scientists who are all about climate change were all in places like New York and Singapore, and places where there was really bad smog and all this other stuff. And if he lived there too, sure, he'd believe that climate change was real. But you got to get out of those areas. It's like their sample sizes are a little larger than just New York, dude. But okay. So I said that, and then he said I was strawmanning him, and I was just like, that's what you said. He goes, well, that's not the import of the whole discussion. I was just like, well, I'm not talking the whole discussion. I'm talking what you just said there. And I was just like, you said there is wrong. Then Oz showed up, and Oz went right in. And I was just like, Oz is in there? So I said, oh, fuck it, I'll go in. I wasn't going to go in because he was already calling me an idiot, and I was just like, I have no interest in engaging, clearly just wants to name call. But I went in for a little while. And oh god, it just went on forever. And 4 hours later, I got out, and I was just like, that was fun.
Yeah, Twitter's a cesspool. That's one that I have avoided. Kind of like Reddit. It's just one of those things that I've had a bad experience just about every time. And I'm not a pithy kind of person, so the short comments responding, I'm just trying to, comment after comment after comment. So finally, I was like, okay, I can't do this. This sucks.
Oh no, I am well known for the /3/4/5. I'll have 30, and they're like, Nick, can you say something concise? And I was like, no. And the funny thing, I got into an argument with this too, because they're like, you're a writer. You should be able to write concisely. I was like, no, every writer I know writes longer and longer and longer, except when they're really trying to write. Then they write concisely. And the reason is because they become so good at writing concisely and saying a lot in a short period, but spending a lot of time and effort into it that they want to say the same amount, but they're too bothered to actually take hours to say it. So you get this huge amount. The better a writer, usually the more verbose. That's why Twain said, sorry for the length of this letter, but I didn't have time to write a short one. So yeah, that's me. I'm a quasi writer. Mm-hmm. I don't think I could sit down and write a book. I'm pretty sure I can't sit down and write a book. I'm too ADHD, I'll get bored with a task quickly. Mm-hmm. So, but I do have kind of weird moments of inspiration where I just start kind of writing. It could be poetry, it could be songs, it could be rap songs. It's, sometimes I just have this inspiration to put pen to paper, and I'll write, man, and I'll just fire it off 2 pages, just bang, 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 and then I'm done. So I don't know what you call that. Oh, ADHD. Well, yeah, writing is, and I haven't written in a long time. And there's a couple of reasons for that, and I'd like to really get back to it. I always the definition of a writer for me is someone who can't stop, and I got so much stuff I want to write. The show takes up a huge amount of time. The family takes up the rest of the time. So the time to really write the things I want to. Every now and then I get a pet project, and I'll have to write something short for somebody, and usually it'll still take me 4 or 5 hours because I want to write it well. But I don't write as much as I'd like to, so I'm trying to figure out how to work that back into the schedule. So used to teach it too. Neil's there. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you have a degree, right? So
not in writing. I've written 10 full-length novels.
No,
at
but
least,
I'm
the
sure
ones
you've
that are actually
taken
out.
creative writing or literature classes or something
I
like
took
that.
1 or 2 in college. Most of it was self-taught. I wish I would have taken more, but I was already loaded. I was interested in. I had 2 BAs in philosophy and psychology, and I very nearly snuck in a 3rd in physics. Wasn't able to. Got it instead a minor in education. So yeah. So that's it.
I think if maybe I took a creative writing class or something like that, I probably could, so that, because my issue is articulating. I can put the emotions down. That's not a problem. But articulating it in a way that it's captivating and, kind of drawing people in and things, those are the skills I do not have.
A lot of that actually, a lot of it translates to doing the show, because it's everybody's got stories. There's no shortage of good stories. There really isn't. There's a shortage of people who can tell them well. But so I the stories that interest you as a person are very, very rarely the stories that are going to interest other people. That just takes experience. It's learning what you've been through that other people are going to find fascinating. You're like, really? Yeah, so that but I there was a writer, her name is Lori Foose, and she's a nut. I love her to death, but she's a nut. Her first book was a woman goes to the mall.
I'm sorry, I saw what Neil put in the chat. And
At night.
I didn't mean to interrupt you laughing.
Titan's like, oh, you're both kids. Like, oh yeah. No, I'm just grumpy today. I think I'm.
Neil just gave you a big old F you, and I was just laughing.
May, what did I do? What the hell? I mean, I normally go after. I mean, don't get me wrong. Any time I have a chance to like give him a hard time, I do. But that's what I go to his channel for. I don't understand. Like, I haven't said anything mean about him since I was sick for 3 weeks. I didn't give him a hard time for 3 weeks. I'd think it'd be like appreciative and be like, oh, I think it'd be like, well, gee, Nick, I was really worried when you did come by my stream for 3 weeks. No, I was like, fuck you, thanks, Neil. Good to see you too, buddy.
Oh, it was a ploy to get you to notice him. He said, now he sees me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That KCA Randy is here. Randy, good to see you. So I'd like to also start doing the right thing. So Lori Foose, so one of her characters her main character goes to the shopping mall, and then notices one day while she's at the shopping mall that her uterus is gone, and she's very upset by this, and she doesn't know where her uterus is. Apparently, her uterus just got tired of being inside her body and just left, and so she does these kind of surrealistic, really out there pieces. And so she goes to the last store she was at and says, oh, excuse me, I lost my uterus. Is it here? Like, sorry, no, ma'am, we can look for it. And then eventually she goes, there's a talk show host who takes this on as a thing, and the whole world gets, trying to find her uterus. And it's really what it is she's trying to talk about, obviously she's talking about reproduction and women's, how women are, expected to be mothers in some way or another.
Right.
And here's a woman who, her uterus just felt ashamed that it hadn't been used, right? And that she wasn't trying to be a mother, so her uterus failed, and she's got to have this conversation with her uterus. So that's Lori, bit of a nut, but she did this workshop that I didn't want to go to. My wife was like, no, you should really go. I went there and I met just some spectacular writers, a number of published writers. She was obviously a published writer, and I learned so much. I went to her workshop for probably about 4 or 5 years, still friends with most of the people there. And then started my own workshop, and that's I haven't taken the classes, so I can't sit there and say I really want to. My best friend in college got his did psychology and English, and I was like, I'd love to do English. I don't know where to fit it in. I didn't have enough time, and I had taken enough college courses in high school that I could get most of my minimum requirements out. That's how I got so much done. I'm a sponge. I love learning, which is the other thing is I'm realizing I don't learn the way I used to. But yes, Titan, I'm griping, so give me a friggin' break. Yeah, what?
What? Huh?
Yeah, I heard you complaining, and since I think this is going to be a bitch session. Yeah. so if you wanna...
yeah, I actually I probably will at least write a mini book, and it's going to be based on my experience because I grew up in the streets in a rough neighborhood, and when I talk about the stories and things that I've seen, and the people are just like shocked and stunned. They're like, because of where I am now, it's like at work, the very few people that I have kind of friended and opened up with a little bit, they're just like stunned, and they can't believe, the things that I've seen and experienced. So I think that's a story that needs to be told, and one of these days I'll at least sit down and start working on it, maybe.
Or I mean, there are a lot of tricks to, and we used to do in time on writing, and I'd just teach writing because I did the workshop. I want to do that again, but it should be on my channel. It's not an in time kind of thing. But one thing,
you're like, hey, you offering lessons? I'll take them.
Yeah, I would be more than happy to. Well, if you actually look up on writing on the in time thing, you'll find a whole bunch of ones where I was just going over the basics, and I'd like to get back to doing that, once a week. But it really belongs on my channel. It's sort of like, since my channel isn't really set up to broadcast, I haven't bothered porting everything over. I enjoy doing it, and I love teaching. And I quit teaching. I taught a class here for about 10 years on the business and craft of writing, how to get an agent, how to get published, how and when to do self-publishing, how to market, how to pitch, and obviously all the crafts. So what makes a good story? How do you do character sketches? Do you even need to do character sketches, and why? How to honor the emotional integrity of a story, because I think too often, especially when people are doing nonfiction, too often they're trying to honor the actual the facts, and they ignore sort of the emotional integrity of the story for factual integrity. Now, if you're a journalist, yes, you should do that. Anything short of a journalist, it's the emotions people care about. So when people tell stories, they have their own emotional investment in it, but that emotional investment changes every time you tell the story, which is one reason why I try not to tell people what I'm working on. What are you working on? What are you working on? I lose interest in what I'm working on the more I talk about it, because you get almost the same amount of juice from it. You get the same amount of, oh, wow, that's a great idea, but you didn't have to work for it, so now why bother working? But, it's like, okay, you're in the car, truck comes by at 80 miles an hour. You're stopped at a light, truck didn't see the light, it veers out, goes through the intersection, 80 miles an hour, misses you by maybe 3 or 4 feet. At 80 miles an hour, that's a lot. That's not a lot, sorry, that's close. 3 feet missed by a truck at 80 miles an hour. I'd scare the living shit out of me. The first time you tell somebody that story, what do you say? You say, oh, it missed me by 3 feet. Second time you tell the story, how much did it miss you by? 2.5 feet. Next time it missed you by 2 feet. Then it missed you by that. And every time you tell a story, you're changing it. Why? And are you being honest, by the way? Are you lying, or are you being honest? Well, you're maintaining honest to how you felt, but you have changed the facts. Now, is it salient? Probably not, because what's important is how you felt. But why is how you felt changed? Well, every time you tell a story, you lose some of the juice in it. So it keeps getting closer and closer and closer. And by the time you're done, you're like, oh, it missed me by an inch, man. It missed me by an inch. Well, that's how you feel right now. It really missed you by 3 feet. And none of it matters. I mean, does it really? Again, it's a truck going by 80 miles an hour. It was close. That's what you're trying to say.
It was close.
Yeah.
If it was a foot, if it was an inch, it sucked either way.
So you thought you were going to die either way. So it's, yeah. So that's the kind of stuff I like discussing.
It's like my mom used to say, if you tell lies, eventually you're not going to know what was real and what wasn't. Because you tell the lies so much, you start to believe your own lies. And so I honestly had this kind of fear growing up about telling lies, that I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to tell the difference between what really happened and what didn't happen. It's an odd, weird thing, but
that makes a lot
it makes sense to what you're saying, though.
That makes a lot of sense.
I mean, you tell a story enough.
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, one of the biggest reasons not to lie is because I fucking forget what I said. Lies,
Yeah, that was the other thing, was you have to, she said, and if you do lie, to keep the lie up, you have to remember what you said the first time you told the lie, and you have to remember it every time. And I'm just like, dude, I'm not lying. I am not going to lie. That is too freaking hard.
Well, and then whatever lie you said to cover for the lie, It's just like the truth is the easiest thing to
Right.
remember. If for no other reason, forget morality. The truth is the easiest thing to remember. I don't have time to fucking, yeah.
That's exactly it. At least it's rooted in some kind of reality, and you can somewhat, maybe a little bit of embellishment, maybe forgetting some of it, but you can still get the gist of the story out there where it's believable. What is the old saying that a lie goes all the way around the world before a truth gets halfway there?
Before truth while truth is still lacing up its shoes. It's credited to Mark Twain also. I don't know if that's actually him, but that's usually the one who gets credit for it.
Well, other than the racist stuff that he said some pretty smart things.
I didn't realize he had said racist stuff. He said racist stuff?
Well, in the writings was what I was thinking about.
Oh, yeah. He did. There was, and yep, there's definitely. I mean, it's hard. It's always hard. All right,
my guy is
Thank you so
online
much.
now. I'm gonna bounce over there.
All right.
If you're still hanging around here in a little bit, I'll come pop back over here with you.
Oh, appreciate it. Yeah, hopefully we'll be about 2-3 hours. We'll see. So good to see you. Thanks for coming in.
All right, you too, bud. Bye.
All right. I see Jason over there. Oh, watch. It's gonna boot the call. It ended the call. So as soon as Skype is really tricky. I don't know why it's so weird. If there's somebody who wants to disagree with me and tell me that it's really easy to use. So I opened a room that anyone could come into, but when the last person goes, it automatically closes the room. It's like, now I got to reopen the room. Problem is, when I reopen the room, I say, don't notify the people. I don't want to bug the people. The people who've been in there in the past. Well, when I start it, so I'm gonna reopen the room. And as soon as I do that, everybody who's ever been in the room is going to get a notification, even though I said, don't ring the group, they all get a notification. So the technical issues, I guess, will just continue to abound. So Eddie probably just got another notification that we're starting just whenever the last call bails. My frustration with technology grows. Today, my daughter wanted to buy a unicorn island on Minecraft. So I said, okay, great. Buy it. I approve the purchase because I got to approve it. Doesn't go through. Buy it again. I approve the purchase. Doesn't go through. And we're paying in cash because you get a discount if you pay in cash. You pay in the Minecraft coin, the mine coins, and we're paying in cash. But it says what it actually does is when we pay it in cash, it converts the cash to mine coin and then buys it in the mine coin. But it's still less. It's just like, okay, I don't care. So 4 or 5 hours, it kept saying it was approved. She didn't get it. And I go check the receipts. I check them. None of it went through. So finally I said, I'm just going to buy the coin and then do it. Go to buy the coin. It says, you still have a purchase pending on the coin. I said, finally. It says, do you want to approve it? I said, yes. It approves the other 7 or 8 that we've done. And where she was trying to get, 100 mine coin to do this. She now has 7,000 mine coin. I approved one transaction. Poof, all the others went through at the same time. And she still doesn't have what she was trying to get. She just has the mine coin. This is Microsoft, so I get it and understand. Hey, there he is.
What's up, man?
Oh, not much. I had a bit of an echo there. I guess you're in the background. And then as soon as you bail in this room, the room's going to close again. It's, dear Lord. So, Titan said something actually I wanted to follow up on anyway. He did write racist stuff, but you gotta be a little careful with people who do that. I had a friend of mine who wrote a very racist character in a workshop that I was part of, but wasn't running. If I was running, I was like, we're not gonna get into. She was getting her hassled for how racist her character was, but the person was conflating her for the character. I was just like, so I can never write. Does the person who wrote Darth Vader, does George Lucas, mean because Darth Vader does all these terrible things? Oh, God. But I have not heard about Twain's personal writing, so that's why if Twain made it clear in his personal writings that those weren't his, that would better. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good, man.
Good. Glad you were able to show up.
Yeah. Well, dinner and such. 7 o'clock.
Yeah. Well, no, we're running late. I was just telling a story. So my daughter, it took me hours to get her this thing she wanted in Minecraft, and in the end, we need 100 Minecoin. We bought 7,000, so I got to go back and talk to Apple about it. I'm sure at first they'll give me a hard time, and usually I'm going to get that stuff resolved. But just like, oh my God, technology has been rebelling against me all day, and I'm going to bitch about it. So that's what I'm going to do. How about you? How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm fantastic.
Really? That's good. What's going on?
Oh, it's Friday, man. End of a week. I got to work all weekend on various projects, but I'm glad to be able to have time to do them. I don't know, I'm just in a good mood. Had a good dinner. And...
All right. Well, I'll try not to. I'll try not to drag you down. I'm just frustrated. I was saying earlier, I ended up getting sucked into a John Maddox stream. Oz went on, and I went on, and I said, "Okay, if Oz is going to go on, I'll jump in." That's how I got on Darth Dawkins. I wasn't going to go into Darth Dawkins, and then Amy Newman went on. I was like, "Oh, okay." Just be emotional support or be backup. And I wasn't even allowed to talk until she failed. I was like, "Oh, okay, well, fail." So. Yeah, that's how I ended up on Maddox's, and that was just, oh, dear Lord, it told me that quantum mechanics proved God. And I said, well, that's
right.
not what, that's not what I heard. And what I heard was that anyone who claims to understand quantum mechanics doesn't understand quantum mechanics. And you're like, well, how much reading have you done on this? And not a heck of a lot. And the reason is because the very little I have, I mean, I've heard a few scientists have said that, but, that's the view of a few scientists. The scientific community has not reached any sort of consensus on, oh, so you say you have an open mind, but you won't do the research. Oh, for fuck's sake. Reminded me of the flat earthers who I was like, see this video, it'll prove the earth is flat. Do you know how many of those videos, do you know how much research I put into when is the end times and when is all this? Every generation's thought it. Now, you think that's what it proves, it demonstrate it. I'm sorry, what were you going to say?
Well, I was just going to say, as far as the end times, it's Paul thought it was the end times. So, I mean, if the guy who wrote the fucking, over half of the New Testament didn't get it right, then why should we even bother looking at it?
Yeah. That's a good point.
Well, supposedly wrote. I mean, I shouldn't have fallen down that rabbit hole.
Well, and then he was just like, and then I ended up mentioning, which I guess was Maddox's pet peeve, and now I've forgotten the guy's name again. Oh dear Lord, what was it? The guy, and I thought he had killed a black man outside during the riots. Killed a black man in a outside a car dealership parking lot. Well, it turned he shot 3 people, and none of them was black. He'd come in from another state. Turned out none of them was black. So I was somehow very, very off on that. I was very mistaken. But we ended up talking about it, and he's just like, well, he goes, you haven't even seen it. You don't know what happened. I was like, dude, I was fucking airing it live. He was one of 2 people who died on our air. And he's just, oh, now you're just lying. I was like, you can fucking go see the archive. I think it's in our intro. An extremely hostile cat, that one. Wow. Oh, hey, we've got another one. Okay, now I'm going to have to start splitting up windows and getting people into, hey, Jason, how are you?
Hey, what's up? Can you hear me?
I can. I got to tell you, I am going to start believing in God. This is now several people who've connected, and every time they connect, the only audio I can't get right is mine. I don't know what the hell the deal is with that, but. So how you doing?
Well, Jason's smarter than both of us, so that works.
Yeah, wouldn't surprise me. Oh, dear Lord. One of these days, that cough will stop. All right, well, let me...
Is my camera on? Can you see me?
Yeah, we can see you.
We can see. Hey, put some clothes on, dude.
We can see you. The question is how to stop. All right, there you go. And I can put each of you now into one of the smaller cameras there. So that central camera just shows whoever's talking, but for in a second I can get different people in different little windows
Yeah, it's all
there.
good.
So, yeah. So how you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. It's kind of, I really wanted to come on Maddox's stream, but I had a bunch of family stuff and I had to get up early. But I kind of regret not jumping on because I know you guys are talking about climate change, at least somewhat.
Yeah, he was the one that so you were there for at least part of that. Yeah, the what got me was he had said
Yeah,
that,
I did, yeah.
Yeah, it said something along the lines of the let's see, the climate scientists. The problem was he had suggested. Have you ever noticed that climate scientists all come from these these regions where there's a lot of smog, and they come from New York, they come from Singapore, they come from, it goes, and if I lived there, yeah, I might think that the world is going to hell in a handbasket too. But if you go to all these other places, the environment's just fine. I was just like, you do realize that they don't take local samples. They take samples. They go to Antarctica. They go to. Do you know what an ice core sample is? The smog in New York has nothing to do whatsoever. Oh dear Lord! So and then I said that, and that did not please him. So I was gonna stay out of it.
Yeah, he wasn't too happy about that. I kind of stopped watching on when you guys were going at it, but I did catch some of the other guys that were posing some questions on that topic. It seemed like they, typically they had just enough info to be dangerous and enough for them to refute, or at least to attempt to, take a position against climate change. So it was pretty, how do I put it? I don't know. It seemed pretty lowbrow. They didn't have any sense at what climate actually even was versus the weather. I thought that was kind of funny, but
and they mentioned that in Rome, like ancient Rome, or I guess there was water buffalo because they saw pictures in caves of water. So like the environment changes and the weather changes and things, it's just changing. And I was just like, nobody's arguing that it doesn't change naturally. What we're arguing is that this is happening 100 times, 1,000 times faster than it ever has before, and we understand how and why, and we know what. And it's just like, yeah. It was. What was weird was, yeah, I've seen the lowbrow. They knew more than most people who deny it, and that was just odd. I've never seen people who had at least some idea of what the arguments were denying it that emphatically, and just like, and they're like, oh, can scientists come around? And then they started telling me about embryogenesis. We got into that one, and my wife got dragged into it, which was probably should have. Like, she's a PhD in biochemistry. What does she think about embryogenesis? That's not her field. I goes, well, that's a problem.
Oh, your wife?
No,
your wife got drugged in it. That's
she didn't show up, but she's got a PhD in biochemistry. So he's sitting there going like, you don't know any scientists, you don't hang out with any scientists. It's like, my wife's got a PhD in biochemistry. My aunt teaches science at Tufts University. She's a department head at Tufts University. I've met a few scientists in my life. Almost became one.
Yeah, exactly.
Dear Lord. And not that this, I don't want to do an argument from what would that be? An argument ad nuptialism? I don't know.
For authority?
Yes. Yeah, specifically though, your wife as an authority, but yeah, that doesn't mean that I don't by osmosis. I'm not a scientist. I can't speak like a scientist, but I can sit there and say that just because I know her views on embryogenesis are similar to mine. It's like, well, that means that there's a problem because it means you guys haven't studied embryogenesis.
And I've had these discussions, or at least I had a discussion with Maddox where he took offense at me saying that he didn't have any background in these areas and that he's like making statements on a topic of which he has no expertise, and that his position is antithetical to the scientific consensus. And I hear this a lot where people that don't want to, that they think there's some problem with acknowledging what the preponderance of experts in a particular area, what their positions are, that's not sufficient evidence to support a position. And while I understand this appeal to an authority facet, I just really take offense at folks that say, look, you've got like 1,000 scientists and 99% of them are saying X, that we shouldn't look at that those positions. That's just ridiculous. Yeah, go ahead, Pat.
Well, the answer, and this is the, again, I love people who like to throw out, immediately their answer to everything is what mode of fallacy are you? The one defense for argumentum ad populum is argumentum at expertise. People forget that. The one argument that isn't ad populum is those created by a group of experts. So I just love that one. I get that one all the time. I don't know what we're going to do with idiots. I mean, and I am curious as to what do you do when you're talking to someone and they think they're right and they're wrong. It's not like you think they're wrong. It's not like you're just in a different position. Their worldview is not factual.
Yeah.
What the fuck do you do?
Well,
do you even bother engaging with them?
That's a really good question.
I'm thinking no.
Well, Titan's answer is no, and I try to lean towards no, but I tend to think that, okay, my father used to say this all the time. He goes, well, Nick, your biggest mistake there was trying to be reasonable. And I was just like, okay, yeah, and there really are. There's just a number of people where that's the biggest mistake, and I try to avoid those, but I probably suffer from a huge excess of charity, which you guys have seen me do, and oftentimes it frustrates people, and every now and then it works and pays off. But yeah.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah. Sweet. Yeah, that doesn't actually come across on the thing though. But the cameras. Yeah, people were playing with that. I accidentally enabled that whatever that's called together mode. I enabled that accidentally.
Oh yeah.
See if I can switch that out just because. There we go. So that way we can see everybody. So no, I don't know. I think there's a huge appeal to ego when you think you've figured out what everybody else has wrong, and when when there's a consensus in one direction. If you think you really credibly have evidence in another one, it's a huge appeal to ego, and I understand that. But that's when I double check my math. And one of the things I told him, and I was suggesting this too. I was like you don't want to believe. I really wish there was a God. I do. I genuinely do. I miss my beliefs, all that stuff. So, but because I wish there was one, I double check my math. Every time I see something that suggests there is one, I say I'm going to be twice as skeptical. And the reason is because I have to overcome the fact that I want there to be one. So I sit there and say, is what I'm doing really real? Or am I just doing it? And the very few times I've ever come close to saying I think there's a God, every time I was tricking myself. And one of the arguments he was going on the quantum proves God, and I was just like, okay, so every generation has said that every new discovery, and I used Venus as the example, right? Venus spins in retrograde, which is a violation of the law of angular momentum. It violates the law of angular momentum. What they said was that proves God. That's what people were saying when I was in college. It proves God because it can't possibly do this. And for the faithful, he violated the law just to prove he was there. No, now it turns out it was probably hit by a really big asteroid that changed the spin, or actually flipped it on its top so that it's actually upside down, which is why it's spinning the other way, and it's completely but it's with the law of angular momentum. And we understand now. I forget now what the current consensus is, but we're pretty sure we understand what happened, and nothing. It wasn't God, but they've been doing this for 2,000 years. So the idea that I have to research every single God claim for them, they're like, well, you haven't researched it, so you're not serious about it. Why don't you tell me a consensus of scientists who say this is what it says? I've seen a few scientists who say that, but there have always been. Newton believed in God. You know, show me somebody who says that they can prove it, and nobody says that. And I'll look at the claim and I'll say, I'm not going to do all the. It doesn't matter. It was a long night, 4 a.m. Titan says you interacted with him once, and that was enough. Yeah, I get the sentiment.
Yeah. Well, and the one thing I love is that now we have a huge body of scientific evidence, right? We're smart, but not smartest. The next generation, be honest, will be smarter than us, and that's one thing about scientific knowledge that tends to. I mean, thus far, in the last several hundred years, we've just increased our body of knowledge, and these people want to say, well. Can't trust this progression, this progress as they sit there and type on their fucking computer, use Google, and get on their cell phone. But that was all science. None of these people, like, I asked a guy the other day. He was talking to me about immunology, and I'm like, "How much immunology have you taken?" I mean, I've taken some graduate level coursework in immunology. He's like, "Well, who do you know?" I'm like, well, besides my wife, the clinical hematologist, I think I fucking know a little bit. If I have a question, I ask the clinical hematologist next to me. As we're just recite something, explain it to me. Oh, I can't do that. But you're going to explain abiogenesis, and you don't understand basics of biochemistry or cellular biology. Well, yeah, because I watched it on YouTube, or I heard some really smart Christian guy talk. I'm like, I just can't deal with that anymore. I mean, I will, but I'm very angry about it. I was telling Jason the other day, I'm militantly angry now. I mean, I'm like, I didn't want to be a militant atheist, but I'm like way wanting to be a militant atheist.
And we have Neil here, and he's not on camera yet, but we can hear him. But I also wanted to say, before Neil comes on, I'll get you on camera in a second, dude. Neil, have a gummy bear. Have a couple gummy bears. You were hostile in the dude. Okay, so no, the only thing I wanted to say though,
for 2 seconds, I'm like, fuck you.
The only thing I wanted to say was science has accomplished more in the last 400 years than all of the human endeavors towards knowledge did in the 100,000 years before that. It does not mean science is infallible. It does not mean it's above reproach. It does not mean we shouldn't question it. It does mean that you have to have some humility when questioning it, because so far, if we can get a man on the moon and get him back again alive, which 100,000 years ago we weren't even, and again, that's 400 years where we accomplished all that stuff. That's it deserves some respect. Again, it's not above reproach, and I'm not even remotely suggesting that. But let's be honest about where it's been. Neil, how are you? I'm going to get you on the camera there in just a sec. How you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. It's weekend time now. I just sucks that I can't have beer right now.
Oh, is the blood thinner? You can't have beer on the blood
thinner.
Why
not? Oh,
yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly.
Thanks for violating HIPAA there, Nick. Great fucking job.
I would not have said it if he hadn't said it like a dozen times on his own stream, and I double-checked my memory just to make sure I was clear on that before. I was like, he said this before, right? Yes. I'm not imagining this. Yes. I was like, am I sure? Well, who gives a fuck? It's Neil. You know what? Fuck his sitting there.
You don't have to defend yourself to the joke, man. It's a joke.
Okay. So how are you doing, Neil? I haven't seen you in a while. I've been out for like 3 weeks. So I still got this fucking cough. It won't go away.
Really? Wow, dude, that's you sure you don't got like the COVID or something going on there?
I had like 3 COVID tests. The final one was a PNMR test or whatever the most advanced is. All were negative. Negative for flu A, flu B, negative for something else. I got the results over, but they tested me for everything, negative for everything. I have a crappy immune system.
Maybe you're just allergic to your show.
That would explain a lot. Yeah, I gotta spend more time on your show. Is that what you're trying to say? I gotta spend more time on your show. Is that what you're saying?
Well, you're not sneezy and coughing on my show.
That's true. Of course, but that's because I don't go on your show when I'm sick.
But he is dopey and grumpy.
Yeah. All right, there we are.
I was watching The Rage or whatever earlier, and he had this guy on there named The Preacher, and I couldn't take any more.
Oh, that guy.
That's what they were talking about on Maddox. They were talking about the fact that he was going to have on The Preacher, and that even The Rage was defending Christianity to The Preacher. It's like when Naka's defending Christianity to yeah. So it was a dumpster fire, was it?
Well, I wanted to get in, and he said, "Oh yeah." So he gave me a link, and I was waiting in the back room. And I'm sorry, I just could not take any more. I'm like, "Knock, I'm out, man. This guy's a douchebag. I'm out here."
I have a crappy immune system.
Maybe you're just allergic to your show.
That would explain a lot.
I think someone's got us on replay.
Yeah, someone's more time on your show. Is that what you're trying to say?
That'll be Randolph, actually.
Oh, that's got to be Randolph. That's the secret. The secret sign that Randolph has come into the show is you hear yourself. Yep.
Sorry about
that. I thought we had a no Canadians rule tonight.
Oh, no, two of us.
No, we have
Canadians.
We have a minimum of 1.
Be violating Section 15 of our Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms if you did that.
I don't really care about Canadian rights and freedoms. Sorry.
Do we? Hey, do we have to go back up there again and teach you guys? Oh no, never mind. You guys won that war. Like, wait a minute.
Sorry about burning down the White House.
And they kicked our ass, so we need to be quiet now.
Yeah, you guys still need to. Did you guys ever apologize for burning down our White House?
Joking. Why? No, we attacked them.
So it was our White House.
We started it and lost. Typical.
We start all of them. We start all of them. We're America. That's what we do.
No, we're going there again. We didn't start World War II. We didn't start World War I.
No, but we stole Texas, right?
World War I. Get into it.
Yeah, no, but we stole. So I mean, we started the war with Texas, which we faked starting, but we started so we could not with Texas, but with Mexico, so we could steal Texas and steal. It's the fact that we can't help ourselves, right? We're the scorpion on the turtle's back. We're gonna sting the turtle. They still need to apologize.
To be fair, it was former Americans who stole Texas. Remember, those are all Americans who many of them went down to Mexico and swore allegiance under penalty of basically perjury, the same at the time. So, yeah, let's not talk about Americans' integrity, because we were not going to have a lot in this conversation.
Which is why they should apologize, because they can't expect us to have the integrity. Well, somebody's got to be the adult in the room, and I'm expecting it to be the Canadians. But, Jesus. I guess How you doing, Randolph?
They burned down the White House. They're like, don't come up here and start a war.
Don't start, yeah.
And then they win. They're like, hey, it's like the drunk guy starting a fight against the sober guy at the bar. Come on, let's not do it. That's Canada. Let's not do this. No, you don't want to do this. You really don't. And then you one punch him. You one punch the drunk, and you're the bad guy. Yes, Canada, you're the bad guy. You beat up your drunk friend.
Yep. I like it.
You should have let us invade your country and take you over.
What are you complaining about? You have Alaska.
Yeah, thanks. Have you ever been to Alaska? I mean, it's beautiful, but
we're willing to take it back. We're just
are you?
We don't want Sarah Palin. So once Sarah Palin's gone, we'll take it back.
You have to take the people. You haven't been to Alaska, man. The people in Alaska, whee!
I've been to
Just
a
basically cold. They're just cold Texans, dude.
Yeah, they owe us for Justin Bieber too. That's another Justin Bieber. What's his name? Marco? No, it's not Marco Rubio. It's what's his name? Basically claims he's Hispanic, but really he's Canadian. One of the southern.
Ted Cruz.
Yeah, it's Cruz. Thank you.
I think your sense of blame is misplaced here.
Yeah, wasn't Ted? Isn't Ted
It is
Cruz?
U.S. Border Services that let him into your country.
Yeah, he was pretending to be a giant
Yeah.
beaver. That'll fool. You know what that does to the. He was in a beaver suit. You know what that does to? It's just our border patrol just can only handle so much.
Hey, I lost a bet, okay? Stop going on about the beaver suit. Oh, dear Lord.
Oh, so
I didn't know
Randolph,
beavers did it doggy style.
Whoa,
I thought they
that
did
was
it beaver style, but okay.
All right, but let's not get into the beaver glands again and the vanilla extractor, that whatever that was, because that was too much the first time. This is a classy show. This is not Neil's. This is not Neil's after show. We run a classy show here.
Exactly. Hey.
So yeah, I was telling them earlier, Randolph. I got into it with Baddox yesterday. It was only my second time ever actually hearing him in a discussion. The first was in your thing, and yeah, that was interesting. That was interesting. So
He didn't like you.
no, he was not a fan.
He was making some disparaging remarks.
All I
Yeah.
said was, well, and what he had said was, I get why scientists believe. Oh, no, he goes, have you ever noticed that the people, the scientists who are opponents of global warming and say that the Earth is going to hell in a handbasket, they'll live in New York and Singapore and LA, and they live in these places that have really bad smog, really bad environment. If they just got out of those areas, they'd be doing fine. I was like, you do realize that they sample outside. The scientists aren't sitting there saying, well, I looked out my window, it looks fucking terrible, so global warming. And he didn't like that suggestion.
Huh.
And so basically said I was strawmanning. I was like, I'm fucking quoting what you said to. Oh dear Lord, I got pissed too when I suggested that the kid who killed that guy, that he had made a decent argument, actually a very good argument for the guy being killed in self-defense. And he goes, well, then the guy was killed because he was rioting. I said, no, he wasn't killed because he was rioting. Rioting is not an offense you can kill someone for. He was killed for self-defense.
Wait, you were talking.
Yeah.
Were you talking about Rittenhouse?
Yes, that's the one. Thank you.
Yeah. And I seem to remember I did catch some of that. They were like trying to make the argument that that he was in the right. That he was justified in shooting that kid, that he was attacked, and that he was justified in wasn't that his position generally?
That was his position generally.
Yeah.
And what I did was I looked it up while he was discussing it, and everything I looked up seemed to support the broad strokes of everything he was saying. A few minor details that I didn't find particularly salient it disagreed with, but for the most part, it seemed like what I was looking up while I was discussing this with him seemed to concur with what he was saying, which wasn't entirely my memory of the show or what happened. I said the show because we carried it live. It wasn't my memory of it, and so I was just sitting there going, wow, we've had shows on memory. I know that human beings rewrite their own memory, but that was disappointing that I was as far off as what it appeared to be. But he also, I was going to make another point about that, and I've forgotten, but he had, I do think that kid was looking for trouble. And they pointed out that he was doing EMT work, and that he had apparently
Of course he was.
doing successful EMT work. Yeah, but he had come down there armed, and I've very rarely seen armed EMTs. In fact, actually, I've never seen an armed EMT. I've seen, armed medics, combat medics. But usually when an EMT goes into a war zone, they stay unarmed, so that this doesn't happen.
He is like a young kid who has a semi-automatic rifle with a bunch of other young kids with a lot of testosterone flowing that want to go down there with their guns with a potential confrontation. They're like, we're going to go down there. We know that there's protests going on, and we're going to go down there with our guns in, under the pretense that we're there to protect other businesses and see what kind of trouble we can get into. And if somebody, gets in my face, then I'm gonna, respond. And I seem to remember that what happened was the guy went down there with his buddies, and there was a confrontation. And then the video where they started watching it was like somebody was kind of there was a response to them being aggressive and threw something at him, and he ended up shooting that kid. And when he shot that kid, then he took off, and everybody started kind of going after him, saying, hey, he shot this kid. And when they approached him, he shot more people. So I'm sorry.
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah, I just find that, like, first of all, it's a nuanced situation. I understand that there's a lot of things going on, but my estimation is when this all gets played out in court, he's going to go to jail.
So
That's what I think.
I would hope so.
That was always my thinking.
I mean, I know, but there are some people that might make the argument that he's self-defense.
Well, that was his art. And again, I didn't do a deep dive, but I looked it up while Maddox was talking about it. And I looked several different sources, and what I found mostly seemed to concur that what had happened was, yeah, some trouble started. I don't know what he said, but it looks like somebody else was trying to start trouble with him. It does look like he tried to vacate and leave, and then at some point, somebody appears to have fired a shot at him. He continued to try to retreat, and then he shot back. So if you want to make an argument for self-defense, at least based on what I saw, it looked like it looked like to me like he might be able to make it. So the major objection that I said is, look, EMTs, if you're really interested in being an EMT and you're going there as an EMT, you are never armed explicitly for that reason. That's why journalists aren't armed, is so that nobody can mistake them for somebody trying to cause trouble. And that doesn't mean self-defense isn't.
He's not an EMT though, is he?
I think he was. He had an EMT bag with him.
He's not an EMT.
He claimed to be an EMT, and he was providing medical assistance to some people at one point. I don't know. I don't know.
But he's not an EMT, right? He's not a certified EMT. I don't think
Maddox had suggested it as if he was. I didn't look that up, and like I said, I didn't do a deep dive. All I will say is
there a way to find out?
Oh, we could look it up right now.
There's a way to find out. Find out.
If somebody wants to look it up.
I don't know.
That's awfully sensible.
Who's Maddox?
I don't. You know what? We should get rid of the sensible one. Who came up with the idea that might like solve our problems here? Because this is not a sensible program. This is not. You want. Let's look it up. Somebody look it up, or I'll look it up in a minute. But hey, listen. If I learned something new, great.
This new invention called Google.
Yeah. Well, you just want to be a little careful. You don't want to end up.
He was at the time of the shooting. He was 17 years old.
Right.
Which ostensibly would mean he shouldn't have the firearm, right? How do you have the firearm at 17?
Well, okay, that's a good question. I seem to remember that. If it was, I'm not sure because he's from Indiana, right, or Illinois, and this occurred in Wisconsin. That in Illinois, he can, I think he's allowed to own a rifle under the age of 18. But I think if it's a handgun, he has to have somebody over the age of 21 to actually sign off on him having that. So I think he's allowed to have it. I think there's some gray area there in terms of the gun laws as to specifically the legality of him actually owning it. I seem to remember that he was allowed to own that gun. But he's not an EMT.
Okay.
No. And he's inflating that. He was a lifeguard and he had some emergency training, and he enrolled as a fire cadet, but he wasn't an EMT.
Yeah, he had no business being there. If he wasn't and I've had family members who've been lifeguards before. I received the basic lifeguard training, and yes, they do give you how to resuscitate someone. You learn a few very basic things. You even learn how to set broken bones and stuff like that, because sometimes someone will dive in, they'll hit them, and you have to deal with that kind of trauma. But it's still a very different thing. Yeah, a lifeguard should not be running around saying they're an EMT.
No. And even if he was a certified EMT, whatever, that doesn't give him the right to like arm himself, go down there with another group of kids who are all probably under the age of 25 and walk around, and anybody that gets in their face, like, have a confrontation. You know, I don't even care if people are breaking the law. Let's say that there are people rioting and people are smashing windows. You know what? This isn't like the Wild West. You know, you don't get to go down there with your gun and be like, I'm here to protect businesses, and when I see somebody breaking a window, I'm gonna exact mob justice. That it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, we're not Batman.
Yeah. As much as people want this to be like the Wild West, where like everything is settled by us going out into the street and having a gunfight, that's, it's not currently the way it is. I'm not saying it's going to go that way, because it seems like it's going that way, but that's not where we're at right now. So yeah, I find this whole like siding with Rittenhouse and people arguing that position is really disingenuous from my perspective. Anyways,
it was an interesting conversation. Yeah, I mean, at a minimum, look, if he couldn't have the gun legally, I think that just about ends it for him. And the reason is because one reason you're not supposed to have a gun at that age is because you're going to make stupid decisions and stupid things. So it makes it much harder to tell, especially at his age. It makes it, at 17, it's very hard to tell. Oh, yeah, I don't know. At any rate, well, thank you guys for indulging me. That was the conversation. At a minimum, for me, I was surprised at how inaccurately I had remembered it. And then Titan's been dropping some information here that I think is so. And so if it was illegal for him to be carrying the firearms, he's got a very, very serious problem. And he shouldn't have been in there. I think it's just caused.
I seem to remember there was
shot somebody.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't claim self-defense when you're the aggressor. It's it's same thing as this legal concept in like assault case, right? You can try, but the doctrine of primary aggressor, right? So who is the primary aggressor in an altercation?
Well,
if you commit a crime and one of the crimes that he was immediately, because he pointed the gun at people several times, he was immediately guilty of brandishing from just the beginning, because you can't do that in any state. And in California, you point a loaded weapon at someone, and it could be besides brandishing, it can be 664-187 attempted murder, right? Depending on what your intent is, right? In California, you don't actually have to fire the weapon, right, to be charged. But I don't know what the law is in that state. But brandishing in of itself, I don't give a shit. I really don't. I mean, this kid's a pile of fucking goo. He'll probably get off the same way those lunatics down in one guy's now running for a state senator in his state. Came out of his $1 million McMansion, him and his wife, and pointed guns at people.
Oh Jesus, yeah.
This is the kind of thing. This is the kind of thing we're going to see. We're going to see that on the right, and the left is going to continue to do what the left does and vacillate on certain issues. And one of them is, you may not like firearms, and you may want to get rid of all firearms, but what you need to do is we need to have good regulations and reasonable regulations to deal with people like a Kyle Rittenhouse and to deal with people who brandish firearms. You're not going to be able to get rid of guns, but if your only position is, we got to get rid of all of them, then I don't think you're going to be able to do it in the United States. Well, I know you're not going to be able to do it in the United States.
No, you're not going to be able to do that. And as an example, in Idaho has a stand your ground law, which essentially means that if somebody confronts me and I have a fear for my life, I don't have to back down. I could like shoot them dead. And there's like law that says that I don't have to prove that they were attacking me. They have to prove that the onus is on them.
That's not actually how stand your ground means you have no duty to retreat. Some states you have to attempt to evade imminent life and damage before you can claim a perfect self-defense, because there's a doctrine called imperfect self-defense. This is kind of it, because Nick's an asshole, he attacks me. So I pick up a tire iron and brain him, and he dies. That's an imperfect self-defense. I'm allowed to defend myself with reasonable force necessary to protect my body, right? You can also have imperfect self-defense too, where you misinterpret the actions of another person. So Nick is verbally aggressive, and it looks like he may be doing me bodily harm. So I overreact and I kill him. Just pull out a gun. That's still imperfect self-defense and can be manslaughter, right? So you can be charged with imperfect self-defense and get charged with manslaughter. These are the kind of things that, I don't, this is like an area I'm pretty well versed on, so I don't like talking about it.
Yeah, no, I understand. I swear I read something about like where the onus is on not on the person who is being attacked, like the person that is standing their ground, but it's on the other person. I need to find it.
Please do not read the stuff from the NRA.
Yeah, no, I'm not reading that. No.
I used to love when, I'd love it. I'd be doing training. I have 50 cops in a class, and then I always got the one chucklehead who goes, "Yeah, but I read in this legal update," and I'm like, "Was it from the NRA website?" And they're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Well, because it's garbage." So,
yeah, the NRA website. I used to do a lot of gun debates. The last one I did that was even remotely, that was serious, was with 𝐒𝐴𝐬, who was spectacular, but probably one of the debates I enjoyed the most. But yeah, the NRA. It's like the number of people who sit there and say, "Well, the NRA is really for honorable and responsible gun control," and I was just like, "Well, then they wouldn't be for keeping up the gun show loophole." Like, oh, well, no, that's not their fault. And it's like, oh, dude, that's like when Mitt Romney says, well, I pay the taxes the way I'm supposed to. Yeah, except Bain Capital is the number one contributor to why he's paying a tax rate that's 0.5% lower than his secretaries. Yeah. So guys, Neil Randolph, don't you guys want to become Americans? I mean, this is the greatest country in all the world. Come join us. No?
No, man, we're good.
It's an interesting question.
What's an interesting question?
I do think it's an interesting concept, though, since Jason's tearing through his computer. He can just accept I'm right. No, the concept of reasonable fear, too, in our society in the United States. Are given the history of racism in the United States, which woman gets into an elevator, she's licensed to carry a concealed firearm, and an angry, obviously emotionally distraught African American male gets in there and then yells at her while she stares at him, and so she pulls out her gun and shoots him in the face.
Yep.
And he just had a fight, with his girlfriend. Is she reasonably justified in her fear? Because I tell you what. You may say, no, obviously not, but this country, I don't know if we could actually say that she's going to be found guilty of murder. Given the stereotypes and racism in our society.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So let me ask you something. If there's this kind of laws that are being enacted, I guess, or whatever the situation is, if that sort of a case does happen, is she charged with anything? If it's not murder, could it be like manslaughter?
Yeah. I mean, she should be charged with murder, but manslaughter would probably be the charged with. But in the United States, I'll be honest with you, you'd have to have a district attorney file on her.
Because it's like now your feelings can affect the law? I don't think so.
Well, that's where we're at now. So.
One of the difficult things, and Canadians have this.
I mean, within
issue.
reason, of course. Some
Canadians have an easier time understanding this than people from Europe. But when I first engage with people from Europe, they have a hard time understanding that there are 50 states, and that there are federal laws, but for the most part, we do allow a lot of the states to do their own governing. So there's some states that are really liberal with guns, and other states where it's really hard to get a gun. So you got provinces. So especially in some states where who was the guy who he shot Trayvon Martin when he was shot, and if that had happened,
George Zimmerman.
Zimmerman who shot him. If that had happened north of the Mason-Dixon line, he'd have been in jail. He'd have gotten 6 consecutive life sentences because it happened. I forget where it happened. I would argue Texas, but where
Florida.
Okay, so it's sort
it's
of
always
like
Florida. Come on.
so sorry, Florida, Texas, Alabama. So it really varies widely by state. So we had Joe in here for a minute. Oh, I think he's still in here. I think this camera's open. Anyways, I don't want to. But I was just
in Canada, we have provinces and territories, as you mentioned. The difference is in the states. In the USA, each of the states has more autonomy compared to provinces and territories in Canada, which fall more in line with our federal laws and regulations.
Yes, but they have some quite different ones varied throughout the provinces, and there's also like city laws too. Like right here locally, might be some different laws than provincially. It's right. There's all kinds of shit like that going on here.
But we can't circumvent the higher up levels, whereas in the U.S. the states have more autonomy.
Yeah, no,
they can override a lot of stuff.
But most of our laws never really need to go up to, like the ones that we deal with provincially, don't really go to a higher federal courts. Really,
remember when you say circumvent, that's not actually how the law in the United States works. The states can have laws that are more restrictive, not less restrictive, unless it's an issue of personal freedom and liberty. So when it comes to like gun ownership, right? California can have more restrictive laws as long as they don't fundamentally violate the Second Amendment, right? Mm-hmm. So the standards on use of force are a federal standard. Other states have additional, like cops have to do this, cops have to do that, in addition to what the minimum federal standard for use of force is. So like states like California, you have a different standard of use of force than a place like Arizona, but doesn't mean Arizona is somehow getting away with more. They're just following the minimum federal standard, right?
Yeah, well, then same thing with gun ownership. I live in New Jersey, where we've got probably the toughest gun laws in the country, compared to a state like Pennsylvania, where you get a license and just go buy some guns. So in New Jersey, basically you have to have a firearm ID card. So you have to submit an application. They process it and basically do a background check. Then if you get a firearm ID card, you can buy shotguns and long rifles. But if you want a handgun, now you have to get handgun permits, and you can apply for 2 handgun permits per month, and they last, I think it's either 90 days or 120 days. I don't remember how long. So the most you could ever buy at one time is like 8 guns, and the main reason is to prevent trafficking, because it's not profitable to only buy a few guns at a time. So most of the illegal guns are bought in states where it's very easy to buy a gun, and they'll buy tons of them, and then they'll sell them for 2 to 3 times the price on the street in places where it's harder to get.
Well, then there's the
gotta love it. Woo!
I'm glad we have the gun restrictions here that we do.
Yeah.
Well, me too. I mean, I'm glad. I mean, I'm happy to live in New Jersey, and the funny thing is even with such restrictive laws, if I had started to get handguns as soon as I wanted to, which I didn't, but I don't have any, but I could have over 700 handguns right now. But people who are like really super into guns seem to think that somehow that's an affront to their freedom. And I'm thinking, I think if you could have 700 and something guns by the time you're in your 50s, yeah, you're doing all right.
Yeah, I just like that I don't have to worry about somebody on the road who's raging, pulling out a gun and shooting at other drivers, and
Yeah.
me get caught in the crossfire and stuff. It's
What's funny is that the gun people they will challenge you and say, well, how will you defend yourself if somebody attacks you with a gun? I'm like, well, the only reason I'd only have to worry about other people with guns, so you're kind of killing your own argument. If guns weren't so prevalent, I wouldn't have to worry about people with guns.
And guns aren't non-existent here. There are black market.
Oh
stuff.
yeah, yeah, dude. Yeah, there
How-
are.
It's
now,
just
how-
not a major issue.
There was that shooting. There was a shooting actually that happened like right near Shannon Q, and she had to
Yes.
yeah. So that happened a while back. How often do you guys have shootings? How often is that in the news? How often do you guys see it?
It's so rare that it's big news when it happens here.
I would say if you had to say how many would we have a year, probably less than 6.
That's about right. Yeah, in my recollection too. And when it does happen, it's always big news all over the country. Like, wow, this actually happened.
Yeah.
So do you see it as a mental health issue?
I'm sure there are more minor ones out in the bush, but
But do you guys see this as a mental health issue?
some of them have been related to mental health.
Is that? I mean, for us, it's usually just seen primarily as a criminal. So even if somebody has a mental health issue, we look at it from a criminal perspective. We say, okay, they committed a crime, and we're going to deal with that first, and sort of the mental health. You guys ask that? Is that common? Is the first thought, why did this guy go off and do that, or is the first thought like, I hope they throw him in jail and lock away the key?
The first thought is questioning why, retrospective.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah, I mean,
You want to know why before any judgments are
well, see, the problem though with the whole
makes
mental health angle is that first off, most of the shootings are not done by people with mental health issues, at least not in the United States. It's a red herring by the right to try to take the blame off of ready access to guns, but it's really gun culture in the U.S. It's this root and toot and shoot 'em up attitude that we have here. That if somebody crosses you, that the appropriate response is deadly force. Think about the expression. A armed society is a polite society, which is to me the most self-refuting expression in the history of expressions, because the idea is that everyone will be polite to one another, so we'll be civil, because if you don't, somebody will use deadly force against you.
See, the problem
that's not a polite society.
It's a fear-based approach.
What's that?
And it's not sincere.
Yeah, that's not politeness.
Well, and in Deadwood, they had no laws, and they were pulling a body a day out of Deadwood. It's like, oh, well, everyone's got a gun, so everyone's going to be polite. Yeah, they were just much more careful about not getting caught when they were shooting people. Most of them were pretty stupid, so they got caught anyway. And
Sorry, did you say the place is called Deadwood?
Deadwood, North Dakota. It was
Deadwood, South Dakota.
Oh, South Dakota. Sorry, yeah.
Wow.
Well, no, this was during
how ironic has that name.
Yeah. Well, it was called Deadwood. It was founded on Indian land before the U.S. had before South Dakota was real, and miners showed up, and then they created a town. But because the town was in violation of the treaty and was not on U.S. land, even though it was all Americans, U.S. law did not apply. So usually criminals went there because there was no law. You could, and everybody was armed. Okay, fine. That didn't stop them killing everybody. They killed each other quite a bit in Deadwood. And the town is still there.
A town of assassins.
HBO did a marvelous series on it, which I really enjoyed. It only lasted 3 seasons. It was by David Milch, who's a spectacular writer. And what I liked about this series, it was reasonably realistic. In fact, they recreated the town from scratch, and they actually built it as they were airing, and they had the real horses. They had the whole thing, and they just built the whole thing up. But it was, it gave you a pretty good idea. I thought, violence was sort of always looming, and yes, you were slowed down by the fact that people didn't steal horses because they knew that the guy that had the horse could shoot and kill them, and there was nothing anyone could do about it. So, well, no. What they did was they were just more clever about stealing the horses, and half the time they got caught and they were killed, and half the time they got away with it. It's just, I don't want to live in that kind of society, and I don't understand why people don't realize that's what they're advocating.
And you were earlier asking if we want to become Americans. That's interesting.
Oh, come on. It's thrilling. It's exhilarating.
Oh, I bet it is. Oh no, I think
Oh,
the U.S. does have many great qualities, most definitely, and each country I think has its good points and its bad points, and a whole bunch in between that are yet to be rated.
Can you tell us what the good points are? Because I need to be reminded.
I mean, look, the ideals of the country are fantastic. It's the execution that's been pretty crappy.
Well, yeah, I'm all for the ideals. But, you know,
See,
Right.
One of the great things about the U.S. is NASA, I think.
Well, think about the Constitution. If constitutional rights were actually applied equally to everyone,
we probably shouldn't start with the Constitution.
why not?
Our Constitution was inherently racist and sexist in the opening paragraph. The Constitution, not the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution. 3/5 and the forcible removal of non-landowning whites.
Well, actually, the three,
that's-
actually the 3/5, and as someone who's a descendant of the slaves you're referring to, the 3/5 compromise was actually to reduce the power of the slaveholding states.
Right, because they wanted it to be a 1-to-1 for
Right.
slave owners. Right. So I mean, again, the fact that we had people quote unquote represented as 3/5 of a person who didn't actually get to vote, that slave owners got to vote on as proxy for all the people they owned.
Right,
I mean,
but the 3/5 compromise made it less racist than it would have been. What I'm trying to
No,
get.
the 3/5 compromise made it more because
No, because if they had one,
slaves weren't going to be slaves were not going to be allowed to vote at all. Slaves had no right to vote.
Excuse me, you're talking. I descended from said slaves, and I know them by fucking name. Okay.
Hold on.
So
Okay,
you are
so
incorrect.
Joe wants to make your
because
argument. Yeah.
If it was 1-to-1, then the slave-holding states would have had even more power. So that would have been more racist.
Right. The slave states wanted a 1-to-1.
Right.
But that was as we were forming. But from the Articles of Confederation, they had no voting rights. The northern states wanted to give them 0. Slaves weren't going to have any.
Yes, you're not telling me anything I don't know.
Right. The 3/5 compromise is what the final number was agreed to. Right.
I'd love to stick around.
All right, Randolph, do you want to quickly tell people? Randolph,
I mean,
I'm just 3/5 is less racist than 100%.
Okay, so Randolph, before you go, do you quickly want to tell people where they
3/5
can...
compromise is...
Well, I have one point I want to make, but I want to make sure I think Randolph failed it. So the one thing I want to say is I don't want to put words in Pat's mouth, but if I understand correctly, all he's saying is it's still racist, and it may be less because of the compromise.
Well, but we agree on that. But he's got it backwards that the 3/5 compromise made it more racist. It didn't. It made it less racist than it would have been if the slave states got their way.
But I'm thinking he's saying it was...
Just so I understand,
So I think he was saying it was still more racist than the idea of having no votes. So I think you each actually agree, but I think he's starting with the Confederate, sort of the original proposal versus
the Articles of Confederation.
Yes, thank you. Versus the proposal of. So I think you're each looking at it from another side, but I think you each actually agree that so I think there's just a smidge talking past, but we're gonna. Are we going to say something, Patrick?
Yeah.
Or,
no, I mean, yeah. It's the slave states wanted 1-to-1. That was their whole thing. They originally slaves weren't going to be allowed to vote. The original question is, what do we do with slaves if they want to vote, right? And the slave states are all like, well, I own a slave, I should get a 1-to-1. Under the Articles of Confederation, they had 0. You had to actually be a landowner yourself, not a piece of property, right? I mean, this is really what the question was.
You're still getting your math. Still getting your math wrong. It has to do with apportionment of representatives, not votes. The slave masters didn't get an extra 3/5 of a vote. They got extra 3/5 of representation in Congress.
Correct. But under the Articles of Confederation, slaves were considered property under the U.S. law, so they weren't entitled to representation
under the Articles of Confederation. It was under the Constitution. They wanted to know, what are they going to do with this specialized class of people? Are they worthy of representation, even though they aren't citizens and don't have status as such in society? The North said, no, you shouldn't get any votes because of how you treat those people. And so, and I'm talking a certain segment of the North, because there are people in the North that were fine with it, and that was a different issue. In the South, they wanted 1-to-1 because they knew that population-wise, they needed additional representation, or they just wouldn't have any pull in Congress. They had less than 10% of the population, and they ended up with something like 40% of the voting power because of the large number of people that were basically slaves that fell underneath their umbrella. So they actually had a voting bloc in Congress. I mean, the fact that they demanded representation of people they owned and were a subjected society in of itself was a racist concept. The fact that people that are considered property are going to be represented by people who own them was problematic from the outset. And it entrenched the South as a power. Now, would they have been more power if they were ended up with 1-to-1? Absolutely, I agree with you. But the whole concept of framing ownership of people as mandating that you still get to represent them at 3/5
I'm looking up here. It said, I'm looking up here. It says, what did the Articles of Confederation say about slavery? And it said nothing.
Do you guys know what?
It was left to individual states.
Right.
That's
So
what the
you're making a claim before that isn't being backed up. So I'm done being lectured about slavery from a white dude. So I'm out. Bye.
Really? That's great.
Yeah.
You don't know history. That's awesome, because you think because you're in a represented minority that you get to be incorrect about history. That's awesome. The Articles of Confederation had provisions about slavery in each state, and they submitted them to the Articles to the Continental Congress. Man, I mean, just read a book. It's not a racist issue.
Well, okay, so I still think that probably you guys had probably 95% agreement on there, so I think there was just a little, but well, it's an interesting question.
We did, but the whole framing is it is an interesting question. Like, if we would have went with a different system, the South may have not been so powerful. A lot of historians have spent some time looking at this and thinking that the Fifth Compromise was actually one of the worst things we could have done. Now, it would have been worse in another scenario if they would have got 1-to-1, because the South would have basically had a 50% majority in the Congress, even up to and including the Civil War. But the fact they had so much representation for so long entrenched the system. Now, if slaves would have, if the Three-Fifths Compromise would never have been reached, and slave-owning states wouldn't have had a representative, proportionality representative of the people they owned, then the South would never have been able to actually probably succeed from the Union, because they wouldn't have the political power to do so. The fact that so many states north of the Mason-Dixon had sympathetic non-slave states were one of the big problems leading to the Civil War. And this is the issue, is if we would have, first of all, slavery was, the Continental Congress and the Constitutional Congress should have dealt with it. There was already an abolitionist movement that just didn't have the steam that it would have had. But if the Three-Fifths Compromise wouldn't have been reached, it was probably much more likely slavery would have been ended, absent the Civil War, years before the Civil War, through legislative intent of the Congress. There were already people in Congress 20 years before the Civil War saying we need to vote slavery out. But the problem was, there were so many so many congressmen and so many people sitting in the House that no one could get it done, because the South had maintained this inappropriate majority based on a subversive, a population that was suppressed rather than an actual representative population. This is just, the North was going to never have the votes necessary to 2/3 ratify the Constitution to end slavery because of the Three-Fifths Compromise.
So let me ask two quick questions. The first is, actually, I guess a question and a comment. So you had said because of the system, and there were other systems that have been considered that might have avoided this. Now, one of the views that I've heard expressed is that because the U.S., because the way the U.S. is not parliamentary, and we do not have what we have is a winner-take-all system, this will ultimately lead to only two parties. This is a system that if you keep enough votes and if you last long enough, you will reduce to two parties, because it is a winner-take-all, and there's no way for anyone to work together to try to go to reach a compromise. So, and a two-party system will basically always eventually fail, and the most part that you have to have really at a minimum three parties so that there are some forms of some alternatives. So, what is your view on that theory? And B, is that at all what you were referring to when you said there were other systems considered, and or what do you think would have prevented this problem?
Well, so again, if you go back to, various documents that were circulating at the time, the Federalist Papers just being the one that everybody knows about, but there were numerous things like the Federalist Papers going around. Many people, when we were forming our country, and even in the fledgling years of it, right, were warning of the rise of a two-party system. And we're advocating for the creation of systems that would allow for multiple parties. But because we had I know we like to now like hug Britain and squeeze them and be like they're our best friends. We were very nervous of a parliamentary system. We wanted to avoid anything English at the time, even though we had embraced their common law and done a lot of other things. So the two-party system seemed like, well, it's not like the English, right? So it's got to be better. And we're all Americans, it was one of the thoughts. So for that reason, we'd get along. I don't think there's an actual historical answer, but there were other people that were looking at different systems, like a triple party system, like a triple House representation system where you'd have a Senate, like the Congress would still be the Congress, but then there'd be another body like a General Assembly, right? Which would allow a lower threshold of entry too. But that didn't seem feasible either because they in the concept they had kind of settled on a two-house system, right? And that was modeled after the English system, House of Commons, House of Lords. So I don't know what would have happened. I just know that we were kind of victims of our own success.
Sorry, I just got something is a quick change in topic, and we'll probably go back. It's an interesting topic. Apparently, I just heard this. I haven't verified it, but Trump today sent a letter to Georgia's Secretary of State demanding to overturn the results of the election and declare him the winner. How the fuck? When was the election? Oh my God! I really hope that this is just like. I hope I'm not. But I'm gonna look into this.
Yep. Well, Nick, you take care, brother.
Take care. Why? Why? Because I'm going to have a hemorrhage over this.
Oh yeah. I mean, everybody's dropping out. I thought you had to go.
Oh no. I'm not dropping out. Sorry. Nope. I'm still around. Although hold on. Did we lose? We lost a couple. So Neil, I guess, lost power. Randolph had to go. They're still in the thing. No, I closed the monitor. I want to go get some water, and I try not to I have a remote headset, so I can go around, go 300 yards, and keep talking to people. That's how desperately I need to talk to people. No, I'm still around, but I just I'm sorry. You were saying
how it's just me and you here right now?
I think so.
It's just you and I, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think we lost. We lost. I don't know if it was a conversation.
I don't know who I was talking to, but if being able to talk about slavery, you have to be of the affected minority, I'm probably not the guy to bring on your show or to talk to about it. I don't know who that was. I'm curious. Who is
that? Was Joe Serious Minded, and he's actually been co-hosting Overtime. And he's an extraordinarily bright guy, and I love having him on. So I do think that there was a talking past, and I think sometimes he just he just gets a little hot tempered, and I think that's all that happened. It's not but I'm sure I'll catch up with him later, and we'll talk about it. Like I said, I really think that both of you guys really agreed, and I think it's just what happened was there was one point that was a talking past, and I think he just was very passionate about it. So we'll
I think he was starting from the position that in the South they wanted 1-to-1. That's what they put on the table. I agree. That's what the South wanted, was a 1-to-1 representation for, this we're talking about how would slaves be represented by their landowners, right? Within their population, right? In the North, they started at 0. They said, nope, you don't get to count people you own in your population, right?
Yep.
So as the number ended up being 3/5, it was empowering the South. There, at one point, they had almost settled on a half. Now, at a half, a 2/3 majority of representation would have existed as far as number of seats allocated to states in the Congress would have fallen to the North. So they recalculated purposely at 3/5 so that the South would have 40% of all the seats in Congress.
Yeah, I think that's the other
The
thing. I
2/3
think
compromise was extreme.
so. I think the way you were approaching it was going that step further back, and I think you did that because you're a historian, and that's what historians do. And I think in that context, it might have just taken that extra second. He's an extraordinarily bright guy, so I think it just is. He got impassioned about it. Like I said, I think you guys really were actually agreeing, and there was just one talking past it. Yeah. What were you gonna say?
We probably do, but I don't know why it had to. I don't know why it had to be an issue of race. I don't know why my opinion necessarily has to be invalidated because I'm white. Because I've read quite a bit on this. Actually, the forming of the Constitution is something I actually spent some time looking at, even though it's not my field of area of expertise.
Well, no, I think
yeah.
I agree that neither your race nor his would in any way whatsoever be able to say that one of you is right. I don't think that is a way to I forget what the fallacy is, but there's an actual formal fallacy for it, and I think that isn't an argument for
it's almost like a genetic fallacy. I mean, it's related, right? It's,
there's one that's a bit more
incorrect because
or like an argument from authority or something like that. But then again, but we discussed what a valid argument from authority is. You are an authority. You're a historian. So
there's something like the argument. Well, but it's not my area. I would say I'm not. I've just read a couple books on. I've read a couple books on it because it interests me. But the books I read were, pretty in depth and widely respected.
Listen,
it was the same author.
Please.
No, the same reason I'm now my opinion about the succession of Texas. I've always wondered why have some historians basically made the assertion that the war with Texas's succession, the war of Texas independence. I've heard them say, well, why is Texas seceding from Mexico so important for the Civil War? And a couple of very smart historians got together and co-authored a book. And my opinion about Texas, like the Alamo, was the prelude to Gettysburg.
Really?
Texas had already seceded because Texas seceded from Mexico over slavery. It's a little known fact. Santa Anna, the tyrant dictator of Mexico, was ending slavery in all territories except Texas. And Texas could keep their slaves, but they couldn't import anymore. And that's when Texas succeeded, because the military was keeping slaves from being imported into the state. Because Mexico ended slavery before we did, under Santa Anna.
I sort of vaguely remember that now. Okay. Yeah, please.
Yeah, and so these historians have done some analysis and basically said, so when Texas comes in, they've looked at, Texas gets adopted as a slave state into the United States 20-some years before the Civil War. And Texas, in its entry in, its constitution, they vote bringing it in, the Texas Constitution was already the Texas Constitution, which it enshrined slavery as a issue within it. And when the talks of ending slavery were coming up, Texas was one of the most outspoken members of the Southern. Before they were the Confederacy, they were one of the most vocal members of the group the secessionists. And they said, look, some of the arguments at the time and going around Texas and adjacent states, Texas, Louisiana, Georgia, were, look, Texas, we did it once. We left once. We can leave again. It was only 2 decades. There were people that had fought Santa Anna who were the statesmen that were delegates to the, I forget what it's called. The Southern Continental Congress, when they were going to reform their constitution to succeed. Some of those dignitaries had actually been the same dignitaries who seceded under Santa Anna.
Did the fact that
it was only 20 some years later.
Did the fact that they seceded once successfully grant them permission to secede again? Do you believe in the future? There are people who made the argument that they are the only state that could secede.
Yeah. The truth is they've already succeeded once, but they were forced back in. Every southern state has seceded from the Union. They just unsuccessfully did so. Yeah. And Texas can't secede from the Union. That's a Texas, right? Because if Texas would have had the right to do it, they could have done it during the Civil War, and they got their ass kicked.
Yeah, so, instead,
but Texas was so defiant. The reason we have Juneteenth is because of Texas. Texas refused. They said, per our Constitution and our admittance to the state, we have our founding document. Texans believe their Constitution superseded the U.S. Constitution, both before and following the Civil War, because of the way they were admitted. Because they claimed we were a country admitted, not a territory. So they believed they had different rights.
Oh,
not necessarily did, but that was the argument. But when you actually read the
yeah, I'm sorry, you were saying?
No, go ahead.
Well, no, that's I hadn't known the history, but please, yes, I'm sorry. This is the thing. There's no lag between the guests here, but for some reason there is tremendous lag between me and all of the guests. So you and I are on this lag that's been causing issues. I do apologize. Got an idea for how to get that solved for the next show, but for now we're still under it. But please continue.
But yeah, but it was very interesting to see that, reading a few of these. I didn't read the papers themselves. They reproduced some of them in the book, or excerpts from the book. But the Texan constituency in the South was very vocal about secession. There are some thoughts that the other states in the South would never have thought of it, but for Texas, they were looking at another form of compromise rather than succession. That, it was Texas and their delegates who were really like, well, we should just leave the Union. And they're like, well, we can't leave the Union. And they're like, Texas, we did it with Mexico. You guys can do it here. You don't like it, you can just leave. And Texas had just fought a war 20 years ago. People forget too, some of the generals of Texas were young men who cut their teeth on the Mexican War with Santa Anna. So some of the generals, like some of the men in Texas, were actually heroes in Texas, the founders of their country.
Yeah, I've made the argument more than once that
it's a fascinating.
Yeah, I've made the argument more than once that I think the North lost the war, and our punishment for losing the war was we had to keep the South. But that's one interpretation of the law or of history.
Yeah.
So all right, what am I probably?
People. I was trying to. Yeah, I was talking. People forget that Texas had, 1836. I just checked it. That's when they actually fight, and then that's when they win their independence, April 21st, 1836, and they're admitted to the Union. Because I forget these dates. 1845. So you think about it, it had been less than 20 years.
Yeah.
The Civil War. Civil War starts. The actual date is 1861, right? Yeah, 1861. So Texas had been a state for 16 years when they then opened the rebel against the country that had given them admittance.
Oh dear
and they'd
Lord.
only been in the United States as a country for 26 years. They'd only been free of Mexican rule for 26 years. Yeah,
If you,
it's pretty
if
amazing
you-
though when you
if
actually
you told me
you start hearing some of the
if you had told me all of these facts but not told me which state it was, I would have guessed Texas. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
All right.
I mean, you know, it's. I don't dislike Texans, right? I'm not going to say that, but learning the history of Mexico, I mean, of Texas and its relation to Mexico, was kind of eye opening. I didn't know this till probably a decade ago, right? And I started wondering, why are Texans, you know, have such a bravado? Because part of it is the indoctrination they get in school, and I do believe that. I think Texans have a chip on their shoulder because they're taught to have a chip on their shoulder to a certain extent, right?
Yes.
But with that, I was like, why is there this the belief that, you know, Texas is this and Texas is that and Texas is this? Because Texas, in their adoption of the United States, their formal entry, they demanded to be admitted as the Republic of Texas, a sovereign country.
That I did not know.
No other. We've never admitted any other.
That explains a lot.
Mhm.
Now I'll tell you, Texas, that chip is a very real thing, and it irks. It doesn't normally irk me too much, except when they run around saying, "Why are all New Yorkers assholes, and why do they all have a chip on their shoulders?" And it's like, I'll look in the mirror and answer that question first. But the other thing is, I remember too when Rick Perry was really talking about secession. I had done the math on it. I was like, okay, for every dollar that they get for every dollar that they pay the federal government in taxes, they get $1.30 back in special projects and or unfunded mandates. Or sorry, not unfunded mandates. Sorry, funding where they can actually, yeah. So they get $1.30 back. 30% of their budget is coming from the federal government. So if they seceded, they would have a 30% hole in their budget on day one. They wouldn't be able to use any of the federal highways. They wouldn't have the Navy, so they can't sit there and ship their oil across country because pirates are going to take it. They have only one customer. That's us. And then you end up with the fact that they've already got, I think they were 42nd in education. So how are you going to go from 42nd to any better if you just got a 30% hole in your budget? So and I'm sitting there going, we're going to secede and I was like, you know what? I get tired of the people because my state gets 70 cents back on the dollar, which means my money is going to them, and I wouldn't mind, except that they're telling me how star-spangled awesome they are, and how they're going to rewrite my textbooks to say that, yeah, it's.
Are you in New York?
No, I'm in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
So,
okay,
it was,
same, yeah.
Yeah, same.
New York, Massachusetts, a lot of these states support other states, right?
Yeah. Which is perfectly fine. You know what? We're a union, right? I'm okay with that. There are always some states, and someday it's going to be my state that's going to be needing the support. That's the way it works. We're a country. But I'm sitting there going, I'm supporting their state. They're telling me that we have to teach creationism with science, that we have to deny science, and that they're saying this because don't mess with Texas. They're the smartest and best of all the states, which is demonstrably false. It's not even close. And many states could secede from the union and function as a country. They're not one of them. There is no amount of bravado or indoctrination that will not ever, they may change that on their own, but it won't change it right now. And wishful thinking and thoughts and prayers. And when I take a look at how they're handling COVID, and I'm sitting there going, you know what, guys? I'm sorry. I'm genuinely embarrassed. I really am. And they probably like that because that's their attitude.
Well, Massachusetts is one of the few states that has proven that they could operate as a country because they engaged in a national mandate for health insurance. When you know, people forget, people fought Romney for the Massachusetts mandated insurance, right? People forget that. Wasn't popular, but Massachusetts proved that, you know, it could financially do it. And people seem to forget that there are a lot of these small little powerhouse states that really, New York being another one. But I think it's Rhode Island, right? Rhode Island's another one of those states that you go, oh, what's Rhode Island? But I guess they have some, you know, the standard of living is pretty good there, and they put more money in than they get back.
Well, I think if you take a look
at it, Rhode Island?
It may be. I haven't looked at the numbers in a while. Most of that rant I plagiarized from myself in a rant. I'll send you the rant I did on Trump a while back. it's a different side of me. But I did this rant where I did a lot of research for the numbers. I remember it was of the top 50 in education. There was something like it was sorry, not the top 50, top 25 in education. I think it was 22 or 23 were all left-leaning states, and part of that is admittedly a cultural thing. The liberals value education more, but on the flip side, there are very few problems. It doesn't seem to me education is the solution, is not the solution to. And we're the ones who, we're the ones who are making the armor that is better. You may not like the ivory tower, but it is the ivory tower chemist who's created armor that's harder to hit or to punch through for a tank. They're the ones who helped make the stealth airplanes and all the other. So if you like the military, you like the ivory tower too, because our military would still be using bows and arrows if it wasn't for that ivory tower. But yeah, and it would be Titan who's going to correct my math. Son of a, Titan is a great mod, 95, 98% of the time, and he's annoying 115% of the time. He's going to sit there and try to correct that math, but I believe I'm right, therefore I'm right. All right, yeah. Texas, and I feel bad too because some of our biggest supporters are from Texas, but they're all like, no, Nick, you keep going on Texas because they're not, No, it ended up being.
In Texas, I think I don't have a problem with Texas per se. I know a lot of great people in Texas. They're all from Austin. Just kidding. No, but it's a kind of a among the problem that problem group of what I call extreme Texans. They're basically just the Texan version of nationalism because many of them have this. They're in the same Venn diagram. A lot of overlap. I just see that there's a whole genre of and belief system. Well, Texas, is better because we were our own country before we admitted, and we can always succeed if we wanted to. Well, that's demonstrably false, in my opinion. So
yeah, no, the numbers don't add up. So yeah, it's and again, I don't necessarily mind because not everybody, it's 50. There are things our state doesn't do well. There are things it does, and 100 years from now, it could flip on all the other states. You don't know, but it's sort of like they sit there and act like they're too good for the rest of the country, but they're patriots. I don't. Okay.
Right. I only have a problem with them receiving misproportionate aid, right? Because they're receiving more than they give, which I don't necessarily, in theory, I'm like you, I don't actually have a problem with it. What I have a problem with is then states like that do things to, they're big proponent of states' rights, and then their senators vote not to give relief to places like Louisiana, or it's all okay. You want to play that game? We can play that game, and you'll lose because let's just have a 10-year moratorium on federal funding of states and see how Kentucky fares. Let's just see how some of these states fare. When federal funding's cut, they'll dry up.
And by the way, my state will get more money.
Increase the national deficit.
My state will get more money because my state is
If you want to, right. Let's see how let's do it that way for a while and see how much these liberal states can afford without getting sucked on by other states. We'll play a game. We'll do a 10-year moratorium on state aid from the federal government, and we'll see how it goes. Right? These people wouldn't like it in the least. They, the first thing they do is they start crying, "We need our state aid. We need our state aid." And you'll be like, "Oh, but you don't believe in state aid. You don't believe in, programs. You're all about states' rights. So let's do some states' rights stuff."
Well, it's the same argument too that the right makes a lot, which really irks me. We're against big government. Oh no, you are not. No, you're not. You've redefined big government, so the military isn't part of the government. If we include the military in government, you're not against big government at all, are you?
They're actually, they're the party of big government. It's crazy. It's incredible, man. I used to be. I was never on Team Red, but I used to be demonstrably more conservative, in my blue spectrum thinking, right? And I started looking and being responsible to like what I was saying and reading more. And wow, even it's hard. It's hard to be that guy going, you know what? We're leading ourselves down. It's like, countries see it coming. Like, anybody who studies history that thinks like Hitler was, and I use Hitler, Mussolini, Stalin, like Stalin really was not foreseeable, right? Stalin and communism in the Russian Revolution, the underdogs won. You think about it. I mean, the British, the French, the Americans tried to put the Tsar back in power, but for the execution of the Tsar, communism and the Bolshevik Revolution probably wouldn't have happened, right? People forget about that. We actually attacked Russia, but hey, let's leave that alone. Don't want to talk history. But the issue being that, okay, we have this history, right? And we're defining ourselves by this history. And like we know, like everybody goes, oh man, Hitler was such a, we had no idea it was coming. No. People in Germany knew. People have been warning for 10 years, both inside Germany and outside of Germany, that what happened in Germany was preparing to happen in Germany.
Yeah.
But we want to rewrite history to say, oh, it was an aberration. People were warning with the rise of Trump. People were warning for 10 years. Yeah, there's going to be Trump. There were a lot of people that were, even when Trump was running for office, when they were still saying there's no way Trump can be elected, people were going, there were people, well-respected political people going, no, it could happen. Don't say it can't, because you guys don't know how elections work, right? Or you don't know how this might actually go. No, can't believe it. And then it happened. And what did most people do? Holy shit, we didn't see that coming. No, people did. It wasn't an aberration. For, it just really kind of the American system. We're dumb. And I think it's humans in general. I think it's our situation as people, right? We're kind of prone to our own confirmation bias, and we're like, oh, nothing bad will ever happen. Well, bad stuff happens all the time. That's why, greatest thing that ever happened to me was becoming an atheist, because I didn't have to believe in magical thinking anymore. And the first thing I got to get rid of was a sunny disposition that everything's going to work out.
So, question.
I didn't have to be positive anymore if I didn't want to.
Question from Randolph. This is a good question. If Texas exits the U.S., would they join Mexico, or would they become their own country? And I had an initial immediate answer, and then an interesting one. But please, you go first.
Well, Texas can't. But if, let's say they did, they would revert to their status they had before. They'd be their own republic. Remember, it is the Republic of Texas because they had their own separate government. They were their own country, and they operated as their own country for a decade.
So I think at first I said no, they wouldn't go anywhere near Texas.
The president of Texas.
I figured they wouldn't go anywhere near Texas, and the reason is because most of the U.S. really looks down on Spanish-speaking people, anything like that. So they wouldn't want to touch Texas with a 10-foot pole. And then I realized, no, they actually get a lot. Or sorry, wouldn't want to touch Mexico with a 10-foot pole. I said Texas, not Mexico. But realistically speaking, a lot of them there actually, of course, speak Spanish, and it's. I don't think they become a part of Mexico, but they'd look to Mexico real quick, I think, and say, hey, now let's be buddy and figure out what we can do for each other, because that's really the only alternative they've got, and they're actually very
as far as trade partners. I think you're absolutely right. Yeah. I think as far as trade partners, you're absolutely right. I think Texas would immediately look to Mexico, kind of in an exploitive way, but it would definitely be, I mean, if you could think about the economy that would result. Imagine Texas getting its wet dream of no minimum wage. Think of all the things that Texas stands for, and they'd have a neighbor to the south they could exploit.
Well, now, but here's the thing, though. I could foresee Mexico pushing for Texas to keep the minimum wage and just try to import more. And obviously, I don't think Texas would be interested in that. But having said that, you know, I'd be curious to see what compromises they'd make to buddy to Mexico so that they don't have to eat crow with the U.S. Bet you the borders would open up quick.
Well, I don't know, but it would be interesting to see, right? Like, you know, do I think Texas would be a good actor working in good faith? No way. There's few people like that I go state government wise. I go, this is a bad place. Texas is a bad place. Like governmentally wise, like their government is antithetical to a liberal form of government. Just what's going on with abortion right now. You know, we joke about the Texas Taliban, right? But is it really that different when you have a state that wants to legislate, you know, birth control? And you know, this is just the beginning.
And in violation of a previous law that was explicitly designed to get them to stop doing exactly what they're doing now, which is to just make it so, it's perfectly legal, but the what is it? The bar is so high, and I forget what it was called, but when they made it was made illegal to bar blacks from voting booths. So what they did was, because a huge percentage of the black population was illiterate, they said, no problem, you can vote all you want, but you have to read the instructions.
Yeah, poll tax.
Yeah.
Right. Well, they actually also came with a law in Texas that the same time they're coming up with that literacy test, at the same time they had laws regarding whether or not you had voted before. Like if you had already voted, you didn't have to prove you could read. Who'd that disenfranchise? Only people that hadn't voted before were illiterate, right? You know, again, Texas, not a good actor in history. I mean, every time someone could act bad, Texas is largely, you know, particularly on civil rights, they've never behaved well. I mean, if you think about Lyndon Johnson being from Texas, he was an aberration.
Well, and Kennedy was murdered in Texas, and I think
he was hated in Texas.
There wouldn't be many other states you could have easily pulled that off in. So
I don't think the assassination of Kennedy was I don't think it was easy. I think it was incidental. I mean, I think I'm not a conspiracy theorist, so, but you know, the fact that at that time in history we didn't think it could happen. You know, I think, you know, no one's going to kill the president, right? We're a civilized country.
Yeah, well, let's give guns to everybody, and we'll find out. All right. Well, I think I'm going to start to wrap it up. I'm getting a little tired. I really appreciate you hanging here for the whole time. So thank you so much. It's always a delight to speak with you. I will say, like I said again, you know, I'm sorry about what happened with Joe, and I'm not apologizing for Joe. It's entirely up to, you know, it's not my position to apologize for anyone else. But he was he's I love the guy. I think he's a good guy, and
goddamn, I don't even get a hello.
Oh!
Hey, Oz, how you doing?
Oh, dear Oz is here. I didn't even. Okay, we're gonna have to stay for a while because we got the Ozmeister here. But let me quickly. So with Joe, I think there was some talking past, and it got under his skin, and but I think you guys did agree. So I'm hoping that everyone can sit there and say, okay, we'll get past it, because both of you guys are sweethearts and great guys and very, very intelligent. So, but yes.
Great. Anytime he wants to come on, anytime you want to host us to have a debate about the genetic fallacy for the analysis of a historical, I'd be more than happy to do that.
All right. Well, I will keep that in mind. Oz, how are you?
Anytime he wants to come on.
What's going on?
I went on.
Nothing. How you doing, dude?
Yeah. How you doing?
Just finished up a stream with the one and only Dr. Joshua Bowen on Braxton, whatever the fuck his name is, his
10 questions for atheists.
Oh, for fuck's sake! I've heard a number of those, and they're all
How'd that go?
Oh, it was hilarious because he released his like a year or something ago, and he was a complete snide, dickhead asshole. But it went viral. So now a year later, he's trying to redo it, and he's like, "I'm going to do it now another year later, and not like be a snide asshole, but still ask the same questions." So, but we went through them, and Dr. Josh and I went back and forth on Jesus mythicism, and as much as I made fun of Braxton, it was still a great stream.
Well, I wish I would have known. We would have watched it. I didn't know. Nick said this was the only thing going on. There was nothing else.
I
anything else going on that was interesting. So I came over.
I said the internet was shut down for the night, and it was just this was the only game in town, and that's how I got Randolph and Neil 604 in here. So we, it was worked out well for me.
Well, to Nick's defense, I was waiting to hear back from Dr. Josh, and I didn't set up the stream or the thumbnails or anything until like an hour before. So,
yeah, I stuck around with Maddox a short while.
I'm sure you'll have the opportunity again.
But I will say that Sunday night at 9 Eastern time, T-Jump's birthday is technically now today, Saturday, and mine is tomorrow. We're having a roast T-Jump and Oz stream at 9 p.m. Sunday night.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, I saw that. I already marked that as I want to be there.
I'll make sure I get a link. Yep.
That shit's going down.
Yeah, I will be there. Oh, so what else is going on with you, Oz? How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good considering my last 60 days. It doesn't even seem like that now. It's all been a blur, but I'm doing pretty good. I'm back in a good place. I with all that shit going on with my mom and my family, there was I think it was the night before, either the night before or 2 nights before my mom's actual service, funeral. I went pretty goddamn dark, and everybody was worried about me. And I did the responsible thing, went to my therapist and my MD, and he changed some of my medications and stepped up my talk therapy sessions to once or twice a week, depending on how I was feeling. And now after we did those things, made some changes, I've been doing good, man. Been good, in a good spot, and I'm glad to have most of that behind me. The only disappointing part, I guess, to say, as far as family is concerned, is other than my stepdad, which obviously that's not blood. Other than my stepdad and Aunt Kathy and her 2 daughters, I haven't heard hide nor hair from a single person in my family, since the funeral. So that sucks, but I know I've replaced, if they want to force that hand, I've replaced the quote unquote blood family with an even bigger family and army, with our community and, the friends I've made here. And I'm doing good.
Well,
yeah.
I was told many years ago, you can pick your friends. You don't get to pick your family, but you usually get to pick well.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, please.
No, go ahead, Nick. I'm sorry.
There's a terrible lag. The funny thing is, there's no lag. There shouldn't be any lag between you and anyone else who's a guest. But for some reason, my system's lagging badly with everyone else. So I apologize. No, I was going to mention. So my father had died a little less than a year ago, but we didn't have the memorial service until last Sunday, and that was extraordinarily tough. I knew it would be hard, probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, and it's always you want to keep all the politics out of it, and I think that's impossible. It feels like it shouldn't be. Maybe I'm naive, but the reality is, it's like everyone's there, presumably because they loved him, and so we're going to be there to honor him. And I think for the most part, everybody was well behaved, but there was still some layer like really, we're not here for the family politics. We're not here for the drama. We're not here for religion. We're not here for, and it's I guess we're just messy creatures, and it's hard to remove that. But yeah, I feel you.
Yeah, I've shared quite a bit, like on on our channel, and as soon as I'm comfortable, well, I'm comfortable. I guess, to be honest, I'm comfortable, but until my therapist and I agree that I'm in the correct place to sit down and talk to my brother about everything that happened. I'm not there's some things I'm not going to speak publicly about until I can have that one-on-one with him. But if I were to do that today, as much as I'm in a good place right now, if I were to do that today, and the way he handled it and the way he treated me, it just completely discluded me from everything. I might have like a manslaughter or homicide charge. It was that ugly. It was that ugly. It was that pathetic. It was that disgusting. And I'm not saying that like to talk shit or sound like I'm a badass. I mean, it was that pathetic and that disgusting. But once those grievances are aired, there are things that some other things that I'm going to share publicly, kind of along the lines of what you were talking about, Nick, because it was my mom's funeral got turned into a spectacle. You would have thought she was like Princess Diana, like online streaming, like all these different ways to give money. When you're walking through the entrance of the church, like there was a wall of pictures of nothing but my mom, my brother, her grandkids, and all that. And I'm talking all in all, there's like a welcoming wall and then a wall of pictures going into the auditorium or whatever you call it now, sanctuary, and all that. I would say a good 400 altogether, 400 to 500 pictures. And Tia, my wife, through the time we were there before, I left my own mom's funeral early. It was that bad. I left it early. It didn't go to gravesite, didn't go to anything. And she told me later, she was like, Austin, out of all of those pictures, and I went through them, you were in 3. And I know goddamn well, because my mom, if she did anything like religiously other than follow God, it was she took pictures all the fucking time. Like I would have to say, like, Mom, I don't want my picture taken right now. like leave me alone. And like all over her house and shit. There's just fucking pictures everywhere, right? So the people that put that together, the Christians in our family, completely discluded me, even from just having my fucking pictures with my mom posted. I mean, just little shit. It was that petty, that disgusting, and I've heard of, or up to that point, I'd heard of people, and then I'll shut the fuck up after this. I had heard of people disassociating, but I didn't know. Like, I knew what they were saying, how they felt and what happened, but I never experienced it. Don't know anything about it. And in that moment when I was in the auditorium or sanctuary or whatever, and they didn't save me a seat up with the family, I literally sat in the back row at my mom's funeral.
Oh my God.
I disassociated. Like, all I remember about that service now is I felt like I was just kind of like floating there. I still don't feel like I was there. I feel like I was just floating there, and I remember some of the traumatic stuff, that happened or that I saw or experienced.
I don't remember much of who said what to me, who didn't, who spoke, who didn't. It's almost like this like dreamy, foggy, fucked up mess, you know. And my therapist was like, no, you 100% disassociated. You left. You were there physically, but emotionally, psychologically, you dipped.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing at all.
So,
no, I do agree with that, because I was my anxiety was so high. And if one motherfucker would have said some dumb shit, if I was in my right mind, I probably would have went to jail.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, that's Brandon. Welcome, and I think your camera's off, so it's not gonna. And I'd like to get it so it shows the icons. I may switch to a completely different system. It's like we've got a system that's 99% of the way there, but the lag for me is so bad. It's insane.
You wanna put me up on this couch thing you have set up?
I'm trying to avoid that just because I have no idea what that does to the actual the couch thing. But I can put your camera on one of the things if your camera's up. But in fact, actually, it's supposed to be showing the thing, but it's not. There's always something. It's entirely up to you. If you put your camera on, I'll put you up. But we're going to be wrapping up reasonably soon. We've got new people coming in, so I want to chat just a bit more. And I actually have still more work I got to do tonight, and then tomorrow's going to be a bit busy. But so I'm going to have to bail reasonably soon. But I want to make sure that a couple of new people showed up. I want to make sure everyone got to say hi and catch up. So. That's good. The defense mechanisms are important. That's the one thing we don't remember. Is there's a reason we have defense mechanisms, and even though it can be a real pain in the ass, and even though you got to get around them in order to do good shit, especially a therapist has to get around them usually to get to issues and problems that need to be addressed. The reality is we have them because they allow us to deal with things that otherwise we would be unable to deal with. That's why they're there, and as much as they cause problems,
they protect us from complete mental breakdowns. That's what they do.
Yep.
When I saw. No, go ahead, Nick.
No. Rather you are, so you go for
it. No, just to say when I saw my therapist 2 or 3 days before my mom, officially passed. She was in a diabetic coma. It was self-induced. It was a suicide. Like she we found on her phone, she had 2 or 3 tabs open on her phone, how to the quickest and easiest way to commit suicide with insulin. And then she had took like 50, this is either Xanax or I don't remember now, but it was definitely a suicide. But you don't hear the Christian side of our family talk about that. They hide that.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, absolutely. So we had talked about that. And then when I went in there and talked to her, after the funeral, just to give a really quick, like, machine gun timeline on what happened. So when she passed, it was like 2 or 3 in the morning. They called me like 5 or 10 minutes after she had passed, which, okay, cool. Communication lines are open. After that, everything collapsed. I did not know anything about the funeral service time, location, date, anything until I saw it on Facebook. I saw it on Facebook. That's how I found out about it.
Yeah.
And then Aunt Kathy texted me that following Thursday. The funeral was supposed to be on that next Saturday, or that following Saturday. On Thursday at 3:15, she texted me and she said, hey, nephew, I'm learning not to assume anything through this process with how they're treating you. I just wanted to know if you knew about the family only viewing tonight. I said, no, what time is tonight? And she was like, well, it's at 4:00. I said, Kathy, it's 3:15.
Fuck, man.
How am I just now learning about this? You know, of course she was like, I'm so sorry. I was like, you know, this sucks. I hate this for you. So I went, but I made a V-line right to the casket to see my mom. And then I left out the back door. I didn't say hi to anybody because I definitely would have throat punched somebody that night. Then when I got there, you know, some of that I already shared. They, you know, no. There was even people asking my Aunt Kathy, like, is like didn't Sherry have another son? Didn't she have an older son? Like, is he still around? Is he still alive?
Oh my God!
Like those kind of questions, and then even after, you know, I was there for the funeral. Like I said, sat in the back row, and I told my entire family, the guy that was doing the service, Les Bowling, which I've done a couple of my videos, you know, streams on him and his wife and their messages and their manipulation. And I told my family, you know, I've spent, I don't know how many hours and how many dollars reprogramming and redirecting the pathways in my brain to not think that everything that I do sends me to hell. I will be goddamned if I sit in my own mother's funeral service and have that reintroduced into my brain. I'll be goddamned. I'm not doing it. And he gets up, shares a couple bullshit ass memories about my mom, and I knew it because this guy was my pastor for 10 years. Like I know his cadence. I know how he operates. And he went through a couple, 2 or 3 of these memories. He was like, but the good news is I got my Bible with me today. And I looked at my cousins were on my right. My wife was on my left. And I looked at my cousins. I looked at my wife. I said, all right, I'm out of here. I'm not doing this shit. I don't have to do this shit. And Les knows me and I know Les, the pastor. And where I was sitting, I was in the back row, but I was like dead center of the stage and the podium, and I stood up and I stared at him until he made eye contact with me, and then I turned around and walked out. And the fact that happened, like all that shit happened, and I left my own mom's funeral early, didn't go gravesite, didn't go to the, you know, little lunch, dinner, whatever the fuck, and not one person, other than Aunt Kathy and, you know, my cousins and my wife, not one person in my family thought, holy shit, maybe we should check on him. I've yet, other than my stepdad, I've yet to hear from a single family member, not one.
It's ironic that this is the very system that purportedly brings people together and makes families and makes everybody whole. And yet, on one condition, you have to be drinking the Kool-Aid. And if you're drinking the Kool-Aid, then yes, they're all together and they're all whole. But if you have any objections to that,
Yeah, because guess what? Everybody was either offered or had an opportunity to speak at the service. And one of the things that, and I didn't even know that all of these things were here, and I'll say it quickly. All these things were like either compartmentalized or just buried in me just going through life. But the abandonment issues that I had with my mom, I didn't even realize were there until she had passed. And I was dealing with those, you know, with my therapist. And then, so they all speak. I didn't even get offered. Nobody even asked me, would you like to say something about your mom, you know, or talk about your mom? Nobody even asked. But yet they had like 4 or 5 or 6 women. I don't remember now. Like I said, it's a blur, but 4 or 5 or 6 of these women they get up and talk about all these women's ministries my mom started and all this, and like, oh, Sherry would come and spend hours with us and just pour all these hours and time and energy and hours and time. And I'm like, man, if this isn't just ripping scabs off of wounds, because can I have a microphone? Can I tell you that when you were getting all those hours and all that energy when I was a little boy, that I was left at home with an abusive father that beat the fucking dog shit out of me while she was out there doing that and she was escaping it? Can we talk about that? Because you're just now making things worse. But did anybody think about that? No, because we want to paint this really, really cute Jesus God picture or story that she made all these differences and neglect to address the fact that while she was doing that, she had a son at home that was being neglected and abused.
Myths are a powerful thing and one of the most important things to our species. I'm sorry, Brendan, I think I cut you off, and I think I actually may have found a way to, at least for the short term, boost. So hopefully the lag is significantly reduced. But anyways, Brendan, I think you were about to say something.
Well, I was going to say that's worse than any physical pain you could feel. Dude, damn.
Yeah, it was.
I can't imagine going through that shit, dude. Damn.
Oh, it was, like I said, there was one or two. There was 1 or 2 nights I got. Well, and I'm a, like, whether it's here or on our channel, I'm always very, very transparent, open about my mental health and my diagnoses and all that, because I believe the more that we have people that will talk about and be transparent and normalize that conversation, the more it helps others. Yeah. But there was the one night where I went. All that shit was going down. It was the night before. It was the night before the service, and I went to. And for me, in that moment, this was like the Mike Tyson knockout punch. As far as being the oldest son, and and I've always been the black sheep, but not just the black sheep. Now the fucking outcast, right? And I went onto my mom's Facebook page to find or 2 particular pictures of her and I together. And I went to her Facebook page and went through her photos. I went through it one time and I didn't see them. And I was like, okay, I must have missed them. I ended up going through her whole photo album like 3 or 4 times, and I don't know if she did this because she has some of the same diagnosis that I have as far as mental health, but she was not like I am, like military style, like dedicated to staying consistent on my medications and my therapy. Like I'm very militant about that because I know how important it is. She was not like that. So I don't know if she had a stretch where she wasn't taking her meds or whatever. I'm just trying to give benefit of the doubt or be a proper skeptic. But she literally removed every picture of me from her Facebook page. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, because before I came out and said, you know, I'm an atheist. I don't believe this anymore. Like, you guys can believe whatever you want, but I don't believe this anymore. I don't subscribe to this anymore. Like, my mom was my go-to. Like, she was, you know, other than my spouse, was like my best friend as far as life advice and all that. Like, she was my go-to. And that was just like gut punch, throat punch, nut punch, like everything at once. And that night, man, I bottomed the fuck out, and I went into my studio, and I keep my normal medications up in a cabinet in the kitchen where the kids can't see it or get to it. But then the rest of them I have in a little area in my studio. And I went in my studio and I just poured as many fucking the sleeping pills, or I think it was sleeping pills or whatever the fuck it was that night, just poured them down my throat and took a drink. I was like, you know what? Because I think I'd slept like in 7 or 8 days, I told Dr. Josh, like 7 or 8 days straight, I slept a total of like 6 or 7 hours. And just, I was like, okay, one of two things are going to happen. Either I'm going to sleep really well tonight, or I just don't fucking wake up. And that's that. Like I hit that bottom. So yeah, it is when you go through that shit. It's not, you know, it's not fun. It's not fun. I'm not saying anybody else or anybody here said that, but I don't think the Christians on the other side of it, and I'm talking about like blood family, like they don't get it. They don't understand the damage. They don't understand the pain and the hurt they put people through, you know, in treating them like that and discluding them just because, like Nick said, just because they don't drink the goddamn Kool-Aid. I don't give a fuck about your Kool-Aid. I just want to know that we can love each other and respect each other and help each other. I don't give a fuck about your Kool-Aid. I don't even care what color it is.
I didn't think there was anything more important than family, but goddamn, I guess there is.
Yeah, I thought the same thing.
I'm sorry to make a joke about it, but I'm sorry.
No. What you said is dead on, because I told my wife, had you told me prior to my mom's passing, if you would have told me that this is how it would have went down, I would have laughed at you, because I thought we were all closer than this. But now in hindsight, I'm like, oh, no. And my therapist said it the best. And I, like, it hit me like a fucking Mack truck when she said it. She's like, Austin, what's happening right now is not only you mourning and grieving the loss of your mother, you're now mourning and grieving the loss of your family, because you're realizing that they just said that their God and their faith and their belief is much more important than you are. And she was like, I know it sucks to hear that, but you have to hear it and you have to process it. And I was like, God damn.
Well, it sounds like, except for with one person, who's your Aunt Kathy, who, as it so happens, probably because the blood was so important, you actually eventually got sort of more on your side of the belief, but one way or another, I don't think that would have mattered to her either way.
No, I agree, and if it wasn't for, as far as blood, Aunt Kath, or my wife and then Aunt Kathy and her daughters, and I'll say it now and till the day, until the time my time comes to leave this place. Dr. Josh and Pasta Mike, and that 4 week span where I, like, God, my head was spinning. When I say I went like 8 days and only like 6-7 hours of sleep, like it was. You talk about because I'm diagnosed bipolar. You talk about a manic episode where I didn't know up from down, right from left. If it wasn't for that family, and then Dr. Josh and Pasta Mike just continually checking on me, several times a day, I don't know what would have happened. It was that support system was unbelievable.
Sounds like you got family.
Yep, I got a badass family now.
All right, I'm going to have to wrap this up. I've got at least 4 hours worth of work to do tonight, and want to make sure I get plenty of sleep, because I hear I'm going to be up late on Sunday with a tea jump party, and I am missing that one. So, could you remind us what you're doing on Sunday?
So Sunday night, it's officially Saturday. So today is T Jump's birthday.
Oh, happy birthday!
So everybody,
he's not here, but yeah.
If you're connected with him on social media, whoever, send him a happy birthday. And then Sunday is my birthday. So Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern time on the Atheist Network Group channel, we're going to have a roast T-Jump and Oz party. It's going to be an open room, and I'm going to tell all the Christians you're more than welcome to come and roast, but this is not going to be but this is not, it's not going to be a debate. You can come in and roast, but it's not a debate.
Oh, I know a guy named Sid who might be interested in coming. We'll see if Sid shows up. He may have some choice words for you, Oz. He was upset last time he was on your show. All right. Well, thank you all for coming. Thank you, Oz, for showing up. Brendan, you came in and we were already wrapping it up. I wanted to stay a little extra because I wanted to give everyone a chance to chat. But you know what? You're always welcome. So we'll and I'll send you the link again next time. So thank you so much for coming. Thank you all for staying with us, and happy birthdays all around. Happy birthday, Oz, coming up. Happy birthday to TJ. Happy birthday to Christopher Mounty. His birthday is Sunday as well. So, and I'm going to make sure I drop a line down to him tonight. Like I said, it's going to be a long night. But thank you all for coming, and look forward to catching up with everybody. Our next stream is, I think, on Tuesday. We're going to have a show, like I said. Joe is actually on vacation for about four weeks, so other than the occasional call-in, we're not going to be hearing much from him, and then we should be seeing. Wow, I'm exhausted. Names are just flying out of my. Is Andering also on Tuesday? We should be seeing him. So thank you all for joining us, and I look forward to catching you all Tuesday and Wednesday next week, and I'll see you guys on Sunday because I ain't missing that one.